Something extraordinary is happening right now, and it's unfolding in the one place we never expected to find danger lurking. Our sun, that reliable source of warmth and light that has sustained life on Earth for billions of years, is experiencing an encounter that defies everything we thought we knew about interstellar visitors. 3. I-Atlas, the mysterious comet from beyond our solar system, isn't just passing through anymore. It's doing something to our star that has astronomers around the world scrambling to understand what they're witnessing. The data streaming in from solar observatories paints a picture so unsettling that some researchers are questioning whether we're looking at a natural phenomenon or something far more complex. What started as routine monitoring of an interstellar comet has evolved into the most significant solar mystery of our generation, and the implications of what's happening could reshape our understanding of how our sun interacts with visitors from deep space. Before we dive into the terrifying details that are keeping solar physicists awake at night, I need you to do something. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because what you're about to learn isn't being covered by mainstream media. They're too busy with yesterday's news while the story of the century unfolds right above our heads. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've noticed anything unusual about the sun recently. Share this video with anyone who cares about what's really happening in our cosmic neighborhood, because this information needs to spread. The story begins with what should have been a routine observation. 3I Atlas was discovered as just another interstellar visitor, following in the footsteps of Oumuamua and Borisov. These objects fascinate scientists because they carry chemical signatures from alien star systems, glimpses into offering planetary formation processes we can never directly observe. When 3I Atlas first appeared on tracking systems, it seemed to follow the predictable pattern of previous interstellar comets. It was racing through our solar system on a hyperbolic trajectory, moving far too fast to be captured by the sun's gravity, destined to pass through and disappear back into the cosmic void. But as 3I Atlas approached its closest point to the sun, something unprecedented began happening. Solar monitoring stations detected the formation of an enormous coronal hole, a gap in the sun's magnetic field that appeared to track the comet's approach with suspicious precision. Coronal holes aren't unusual by themselves. They're regions where the sun's magnetic field lines open up into space, rather than looping back to the surface, allowing solar wind to escape at higher velocities than normal. What made this particular coronal hole extraordinary was its size, its timing, and its apparent connection to the interstellar visitor. The hole stretched across multiple solar hemispheres simultaneously, creating a configuration that veteran solar physicists describe their careers. The solid, as unprecedented in wind pouring through this magnetic breach, reached speeds of 700 kilometers per second, nearly double the velocity of typical solar wind. This wasn't just fast by solar standards. This was a stream of charged particles moving at speeds that could cross the distance from Earth to the Moon in less than 10 minutes. The timing was what made scientists take notice. As 3I Atlas reached perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, the coronal hole reached maximum size and intensity. The magnetic field lines of our star seemed to be responding to something about this visitor that went beyond normal gravitational or thermal interactions. Solar observatories around the world trained their instruments on both the comet and the sun, trying to understand the mechanism behind this apparent coupling. What they found challenged fundamental assumptions about how comets interact with stellar environments. The traditional model describes comets as passive objects that respond to solar heating by sublimating ice and releasing gas and dust. The sun influences the comet through radiation pressure and thermal effects, but the comet doesn't significantly influence the sun. The mass difference between a few kilometer-wide comet nucleus and a star containing 99% of all matter in the solar system makes such influence seem impossible. Yet the data suggested something different was happening. Magnetometer readings from multiple solar monitoring satellites showed fluctuations in the sun's magnetic field that correlated with 3I Atlas's position and activity level. When the comet brightened due to increased sublimation, the coronal hole structure changed. When the comet's coma expanded, the solar wind velocity shifted. The correlation was too strong and too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. The physics of what was being observed pushed against the boundaries of established solar science. Comets do carry magnetic fields, frozen into their structure during formation in the outer regions of stellar systems. These fields are typically weak compared to stellar magnetic fields, but they can interact with solar plasma in complex ways. As 3I Atlas approached the Sun, its embedded magnetic field began interacting with the Sun's magnetosphere in ways that theoretical models hadn't predicted. The interaction created what plasma physicists call magnetic reconnection events. When magnetic field lines from different sources encounter each other, they can snap and reconnect in new configurations, releasing enormous amounts of energy in the process. This phenomenon powers solar flares and coronal mass ejections under normal circumstances, but the reconnection events triggered by 3 Atlas's magnetic field were occurring on scales and at locations that didn't match any observations previous. Solar wind measurements revealed another disturbing pattern. The particles streaming from the coronal hole weren't just moving faster than normal. Their composition showed subtle but significant differences from typical solar wind. Isotope ratios that should remain constant were shifting in ways that suggested contamination, or mixing with material that didn't originate from the Sun's core fusion processes. Some researchers began to wonder whether the comet was somehow introducing foreign material into the solar wind stream. The electromagnetic signature of the interaction was equally puzzling. Radio telescopes monitoring solar emissions detected burst patterns that didn't match known solar radio phenomena. The bursts seemed to follow the comet's rotation period, as if 3I Atlas was modulating the Sun's radio output through some unknown mechanism. The signal processing revealed structure within the radio emissions that looked almost like encoded information, though no one could determine what that information might represent. Ground-based solar observers noticed changes in the Sun's visible appearance that coincided with the comet's approach. Sunspot activity increased in regions that seemed to face the comet's position, even when that position was magnetically disconnected from those regions according to standard models of solar magnetic field topology. The sunspots themselves displayed unusual morphologies, with magnetic field structures that appeared more complex and long-lived than typical solar magnetic features. The most unsettling observations came from heliosismology, the study of sound waves propagating through the Sun's interior. These acoustic oscillations, detected by measuring tiny changes in the Sun's surface brightness, normally follow predictable patterns that allow scientists to probe the solar interior, much like seismologists use earthquakes to study Earth's internal structure. But during 3I Atlas's close approach, the heliosismic data showed anomalies deep within the Sun's core. The acoustic waves were traveling at slightly different speeds through certain regions of the solar interior, suggesting changes in density or temperature that couldn't be explained by normal solar dynamics. The affected regions appeared to form coherent structures that moved through the Sun's interior in ways that correlated with the comet's orbital motion. It was as if 3I Atlas was somehow influencing processes in the Sun's core from a distance of millions of kilometers. Solar neutrino detectors, designed to capture the ghostly particles produced by nuclear fusion in the Sun's core, registered subtle but measurable changes in neutrino flux during the comet's perihelion passage. Neutrinos barely interact with matter, passing through entire planets without being absorbed or deflected. Changes in their production rate indicate changes in the nuclear fusion processes at the Sun's center. The fact that an interstellar comet could somehow influence fusion reactions in the solar core violated everything scientists thought they knew about stellar physics. The data from multiple independent observatories painted a consistent but impossible picture. 3. I Atlas wasn't just being influenced by the Sun, it was influencing the Sun in return, creating a two-way interaction that defied conventional understanding of how small bodies interact with massive stars. The mechanisms behind this influence remained mysterious, but the effects were undeniable and growing stronger as the comet continued its passage through the inner solar system. As 3I Atlas moved past perihelion and began its journey back toward interstellar space, scientists expected the solar anomalies to diminish. Instead, they seemed to be intensifying. The coronal hole was growing larger rather than smaller. The solar wind was accelerating rather than returning to normal velocities. The magnetic reconnection events were becoming more frequent and more energetic. Whatever process had been initiated by the comet's close approach was now taking on a life of its own. The implications of these observations extended far beyond academic interest in comet-sun interactions. Solar activity directly affects Earth's magnetosphere, atmosphere, and technological infrastructure. Changes in solar wind velocity and magnetic field strength can trigger geomagnetic storms that disrupt satellite operations, power grids, and communication systems. If 3I Atlas had somehow triggered a long-term change in solar behavior, The consequences for Earth could be profound and long-lasting. Solar physicists found themselves grappling with questions that challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying their field. How could a tiny comet influence a massive star? What mechanisms could allow such influence to persist and even grow after the comet had moved away? Were they witnessing a previously unknown aspect of stellar physics, or was something about 3I Atlas fundamentally different from other interstellar visitors? The answers to these questions would reshape our understanding of how stars interact with their environments, and what happens when objects from other stellar systems encounter our Sun. But first, scientists needed to understand exactly what 3I Atlas was doing to our star, and whether the process could be stopped before it fundamentally altered the solar system we call home. The search for answers led research teams to examine historical records of similar events, but what they found only deepened the mystery. No previous interstellar visitor had ever triggered such dramatic solar responses. Oumuamua had passed through without causing any detectable changes in solar activity. Borisov had behaved like a conventional comet, sublimating ice and gas without affecting our star's magnetic field or internal dynamics. Yet 3I Atlas was rewriting the rules of stellar interaction in ways that left even veteran solar physicists struggling to develop coherent explanations. The first breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Deep in the archives of the Solar Dynamics Observatory, data analysts discovered subtle magnetic field fluctuations that had occurred during previous comet approaches, fluctuations so small they had been dismissed as instrumental noise. When processed using new analytical techniques developed specifically for the 3I Atlas event, these historical anomalies revealed a pattern that had been hidden in plain sight for years. Every comet that had passed within a certain distance of the Sun had triggered microscopic changes in solar magnetic field topology. The changes were typically so small that they fell below detection thresholds and dissipated quickly. But 3I Atlas was different. Its magnetic signature was orders of magnitude stronger than any previously observed interstellar object, and instead of dissipating, the effects were amplifying through some kind of feedback mechanism within the Sun's magnetosphere. Theoretical physicists working around the clock to model the interaction proposed a mechanism that sounded like science fiction, but was grounded in solid plasma physics. They suggested that 3I Atlas carried within its structure a form of organized magnetic field that had been shaped by conditions in its birth stellar system. This field wasn't just frozen randomly into the comet's nucleus during formation. It possessed a coherent structure that could couple efficiently with the Sun's magnetosphere under specific geometric conditions. The coupling created what plasma physicists call a magnetic flux tube, a channel of organized magnetic field lines connecting the comet directly to regions deep within the solar interior. Through this channel, energy and momentum could be transferred from the comet to the Sun in ways that bypassed normal thermodynamic processes. The comet was essentially plugging into the Sun's magnetic field network and using that connection to influence stellar dynamics from within. Computer simulations of this proposed mechanism reproduced many of the observed phenomena. The models predicted the formation of coronal holes at specific locations, the acceleration of solar wind to observed velocities, and even the subtle changes in nuclear fusion rates detected by neutrino observatories. But the simulations also predicted something far more disturbing. If the magnetic coupling remained stable, the effects would not only persist but would continue growing exponentially. The Sun's magnetic field operates on an 11-year cycle, building up energy through differential rotation and releasing it through solar flares and coronal mass ejections. The 3I Atlas interaction appeared to be disrupting this cycle by creating persistent magnetic structures that prevented normal energy release mechanisms from operating efficiently. Energy that should have been released gradually through small flares was instead accumulating in the magnetic field network, building toward a potential release event of unprecedented magnitude. Solar observatories began detecting signs of this energy accumulation. Magnetic field measurements showed regions of extreme field strength developing in areas that should have been magnetically quiet. The Sun's rotation rate was showing microscopic but measurable changes as magnetic forces altered the balance between gravitational compression and centrifugal expansion. Most concerning of all, the temperature in certain regions of the solar core was rising above normal fusion equilibrium levels. The implications of runaway energy accumulation in the Sun's magnetic field system were staggering. If the accumulated energy were released suddenly through a massive coronal mass ejection or solar flare, the electromagnetic pulse could overwhelm Earth's magnetosphere and atmosphere. Satellite networks would be destroyed instantly, power grids would fail catastrophically, the upper atmosphere would heat and expand, dragging low-orbit spacecraft into destructive re-entry. Modern technological civilization, utterly dependent on electronic systems and global communication networks, could be set back decades or centuries in a matter of hours, but the potential consequences extended beyond electromagnetic effects. The sun's energy output, which has remained remarkably stable throughout human history, could be altered permanently. Small changes in solar luminosity or spectral distribution could trigger climate shifts that would make current concerns about global warming seem trivial by comparison. Ice ages have been triggered by solar variations far smaller than what the models were now predicting. Emergency meetings convened at space agencies around the world as the scope of the potential threat became clear. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory was retasked to provide continuous monitoring of magnetic field evolution in affected solar regions. The European Space Agency's Solar Orbiter mission was redirected to obtain closer observations of the coronal hole structure. Ground-based solar telescopes were coordinated into a global monitoring network, providing 24-hour coverage of solar activity. The data flowing from this unprecedented observational campaign revealed that situation was evolving faster. The magnetic flux than anyone had anticipated 3I Atlas to the solar tube connecting interior was not weakening as the comet moved away from perihelion. Instead, it was becoming more stable and more efficient at transferring energy. The comet had apparently established a permanent magnetic connection to our star, one that would persist long after the physical object had left the solar system. Radio telescope observations of 3I Atlas itself showed that the comet was responding to its magnetic coupling with the Sun in ways that defied conventional comet behavior. Instead of gradually fading as it moved away from solar heating, the comet was maintaining constant brightness levels. Its coma was not dissipating, but was being continuously replenished by some internal energy source. Most puzzling of all, the comet's trajectory was showing minute deviations from purely gravitational motion, as if it were being accelerated by forces other than solar radiation pressure or outgassing. Spectroscopic analysis of the comet's emissions revealed another layer of mystery. The standard molecular signatures expected from sublimating water, carbon dioxide, and organic compounds were present, but they were accompanied by emission lines that didn't match any known atomic or molecular transitions. The unknown spectral features were remarkably stable and showed no signs of the Doppler shifting that should accompany the comet's rapid motion through space. Some researchers began to wonder whether they were observing emission from exotic matter states that could only exist under the extreme conditions created by the magnetic coupling with the Sun. Others suggested that the unknown emissions might be signatures of nuclear processes occurring within the comet's nucleus, powered by energy transmitted through the magnetic flux tube from the solar core. The possibility that 3I Atlas was somehow tapping into the Sun's nuclear furnace to power its own internal processes opened up scenarios that challenged fundamental assumptions about what comets could be. If the object contained technology sophisticated enough to establish and maintain stable magnetic coupling with a star, then it wasn't simply a chunk of ice and rock ejected from another planetary system. It would represent something far more complex and potentially far more dangerous. Intelligence analysis of the comet's behavior patterns revealed troubling correlations. The timing of magnetic field fluctuations, the geometric precision of the flux tube formation, and the stability of the coupling mechanism all suggested levels of organization that were difficult to reconcile with natural processes. While no one was ready to publicly discuss the possibility that 3I Atlas might be artificial, private communications between research groups increasingly included speculation about engineered systems and deliberate intervention. The scientific community found itself facing a crisis that extended far beyond the technical challenges of understanding novel plasma physics phenomena. If 3I Atlas represented some form of technology, then humanity was dealing capable with intelligence of interstellar travel and sophisticated manipulation of stellar magnetic fields. The implications for planetary security, technological development, and our understanding of our place in the universe were profound enough to justify the highest levels of government attention. Yet the object continued its journey toward the outer solar system, apparently indifferent to the chaos it had triggered in human scientific and political circles. Whatever 3I Atlas was, whether natural phenomenon or artificial construct, it had fundamentally altered our star in ways that might persist for decades or centuries. The sun that had sustained life on Earth for billions of years was now connected to an object from another star system through mechanisms that human science was only beginning to comprehend. As the comet faded from telescopic view, disappearing back into the cosmic darkness from which it had emerged, the effects it had triggered in our sun continued to intensify. The magnetic coupling it had established showed no signs of weakening. The energy accumulation in solar magnetic field systems continued to grow, and somewhere in the depths of space, 3i Atlas carried with it whatever intelligence or natural process had enabled it to reach across millions of kilometers and touch the heart of our star. The evidence was mounting that humanity faced something unprecedented in recorded solar observation. Deep space monitoring stations detected the first signs of what would become known as the cascade effect. The magnetic flux tube connecting 3i Atlas to our sun wasn't simply maintaining its connection. It was spawning secondary magnetic structures throughout the solar system, creating a web of electromagnetic pathways that stretched from the solar corona to the outer planets. Jupiter's massive magnetosphere began showing synchronized fluctuations with the primary flux tube, as if the gas giant's magnetic field was being recruited into a larger electromagnetic network. Saturn's rings exhibited unusual charging patterns that correlated with solar magnetic field variations. Even distant Uranus and Neptune showed subtle changes in their magnetic signatures that suggested system-wide electromagnetic coupling. The implications terrified solar physicists who understood what they were witnessing. The solar system's electromagnetic environment, stable for billions of years, was being restructured by forces originating from an interstellar visitor. Every planet, every moon, every major body in our cosmic neighborhood was being drawn into an electromagnetic symphony conducted by 3i Atlas from its position now millions of kilometers beyond the inner solar system. Mars-orbiting spacecraft detected the most dramatic secondary effects. The red planet's thin magnetosphere, normally a weak and patchy remnant of ancient magnetic field generation, suddenly strengthened and organized into coherent structures. For the first time in geological epochs, Mars possessed something resembling a proper magnetic field, one that pulsed in rhythm with the flux tube connecting 3i Atlas to the Sun. Earth's magnetosphere responded with changes that triggered displays at aurora latitudes where they had never been observed before. The northern and southern magnetic poles began shifting at rates that exceeded normal secular variation by orders of magnitude. Compass readings worldwide required daily corrections as the planet's magnetic field topology reorganized itself in response to solar system-wide electromagnetic restructuring. Satellite operators reported increasing numbers of anomalous system behaviors that couldn't be attributed to normal space weather effects. Communication satellites experienced signal processing errors that followed patterns matching the flux tube's electromagnetic signature. GPS accuracy degraded in that suggested the satellite's ways atomic clocks were being influenced by previously unknown electromagnetic fields. Most concerning of all, several deep space probes reported navigation errors that indicate trajectory theories were being affected by forces other than gravitational attraction to known solar system bodies. The International Space Station became an inadvertent laboratory for studying the effects of the changing electromagnetic environment on human physiology. Astronauts reported sleep disturbances that coincided with peaks in flux tube activity. Heart rate monitors showed cardiac rhythm variations that correlated with geomagnetic fluctuations. Blood pressure measurements revealed patterns that suggested human cardiovascular systems were responding to electromagnetic changes at levels previously thought to be biologically insignificant. Ground-based research facilities dedicated to studying the Sun found themselves overwhelmed with data that challenged fundamental assumptions about stellar physics. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array detected radio emissions from the Sun that followed mathematical patterns too precise. The to be random Very Large Array recorded bursts of electromagnetic energy that appeared to be encoded with structural information represented. Solar, though no one could determine what that information, neutrino experiments revealed the most disturbing findings all. The particles of streaming from nuclear fusion reactions in the Sun's core carried isotopic signatures that didn't match theoretical predictions for normal stellar nuclear synthesis. Some neutrinos showed evidence of having been produced by fusion reactions involving to exist in the solar elements that shouldn't core. Others displayed energy spectra that suggested they had been generated by nuclear processes occurring at temperatures and pressures exceeding those found in the Sun's center. The possibility that 3I Atlas was somehow catalyzing exotic nuclear reactions within our star opened scenarios that pushed beyond the boundaries of known physics. If the comet could influence fusion processes in the solar core through its magnetic coupling, it might be able to alter the sun's energy output, spectral composition, or even fundamental nuclear behavior. The sun that had burned steadily for billions of years might be transforming into something entirely different. Theoretical physicists working with classified government research programs began developing models that incorporated possibilities they had never before considered seriously. What if 3I Atlas represented technology designed specifically to interact with stellar systems? What if its apparent ability to establish stable magnetic coupling with stars was not an accident of physics, but the result of deliberate engineering? What if humanity was witnessing the deployment of some form of stellar modification system by intelligence capable of interstellar travel? The mathematical elegance of the magnetic coupling mechanism suggested design rather than natural coincidence. The flux tube stability required precise matching between the comet's embedded magnetic field and the sun's magnetospheric structure. The probability of such matching occurring naturally was so low that statisticians refused to calculate meaningful confidence intervals. Yet the coupling not only existed but was becoming more sophisticated over time, developing secondary connections and feedback loops that optimized energy transfer efficiency. Computer simulations revealed that the magnetic network spreading throughout the solar system was exhibiting properties characteristic of complex adaptive systems. The electromagnetic connections between different solar system bodies weren't random but followed optimization principles that maximized information flow and energy distribution was. The network learning, evolving, becoming more efficient at whatever function it was designed to perform. Radio telescopes monitoring deep space began detecting signals that correlated with the flux tube's activity patterns. The signals originated from regions where 3I Atlas should be located based on orbital projections, but they carried information content that exceeded what should be possible for passive electromagnetic emissions from a comet. The signals appeared to be communications, though their intended recipient remained unknown. More unsettling were the response signals detected coming from various locations throughout the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations recorded brief electromagnetic pulses from star systems hundreds of light-years away that matched the timing and frequency patterns of the 3I Atlas signals. The pulses suggested that whatever had sent 3I Atlas was not operating alone and was capable of maintaining real-time communication across interstellar distances. The realization that Earth might be under observation by intelligence capable of faster-than-light communication triggered emergency sessions at the highest levels of government. Military leaders demanded assessments of potential threats posed by technology that could manipulate stellar magnetic fields and communicate instantaneously across galactic distances. Scientific advisors struggled to provide meaningful risk assessments for phenomena that exceeded human technological comprehension by orders of magnitude. Space-based telescopes were retasked to search for additional objects exhibiting characteristics similar to 3I Atlas. The survey revealed a disturbing pattern of previously overlooked anomalies in asteroid and comet populations throughout the solar system. Objects that had been classified as natural bodies showed of electromagnetic activity that became subtle signs apparent only when analysed using detection methods developed for studying the 3I Atlas flux tube. The possibility that multiple artificial objects might already be present in the solar system, disguised as natural bodies, transformed the search from academic curiosity to urgent security imperative. If 3I Atlas represented an advanced scout or test system, its success in establishing magnetic coupling with the Sun might trigger the activation of additional systems already positioned throughout the solar system. Ground-based radar installations detected movement patterns among certain asteroid populations that suggested coordinated repositioning rather than random orbital mechanics. Objects that should have been following predictable gravitational trajectories were making minute course corrections that brought them into more favourable positions for observing Earth or establishing electromagnetic connections with the growing network of magnetic flux tubes. The Sun itself began displaying behaviours that exceeded all previous observations of stellar activity. Solar flares occurred with timing precision that suggested artificial triggering rather than natural magnetic instability. Coronal mass ejections followed trajectories that seemed designed to test Earth's magnetospheric defences while avoiding direct impacts that might cause permanent damage to technological infrastructure. Most disturbing were the changes in solar spectral output that suggested the Sun's nuclear fusion processes were being systematically modified. Spectroscopic analysis revealed the emergence of new emission lines corresponding to elements that shouldn't exist in stellar cores under normal conditions. The Sun was producing isotopes that required nuclear processes beyond standard hydrogen fusion, processes that might be signatures of controlled stellar. The electromagnetic modifications engineering spreading through the solar system appeared to be preparing for something larger. The network of magnetic connections between solar system bodies was becoming more complex and more integrated over time. Energy storage systems were building up charge in planetary magnetospheres and asteroid magnetic fields. The entire solar system was being transformed into some form of massive electromagnetic apparatus, whose purpose remained terrifyingly unclear. Scientists monitoring the situation found themselves in the unprecedented position of watching their own star system being systematically modified by intelligence, whose capabilities exceeded human understanding. Every day brought new evidence that 3I Atlas had initiated changes that would permanently alter the solar system's electromagnetic environment. The Sun that had sustained life on Earth for billions of years was becoming something different, something whose behavior was being directed by forces originating from interstellar space. The cascade effect showed no signs of slowing or stabilizing. If anything, the rate of change was accelerating as the magnetic network grew more sophisticated and more integrated. Whatever 3I Atlas had been designed to accomplish, it was approaching completion of its mission. And humanity could only watch as their home star system transformed according to plans developed by intelligence that remained as of space from mysterious as the depths which 3I Atlas had emerged. The question that haunted every researcher studying the phenomenon was simple but terrifying. What would happen when the transformation was complete? What purpose did the electromagnetic network serve? And what did the intelligence behind 3I Atlas plan to do with a star system that had been systematically modified to serve functions that human science couldn't begin to comprehend? The answers to these questions would determine not just the future of solar physics research, but the fate of every living thing that depended on the Sun's continued stability. As the transformation accelerated towards some unknown culmination, humanity found itself cast in the role of unwilling observer to the systematic modification of their cosmic home, by visitors whose intentions remained as dark and mysterious as the interstellar void from which they had come. The research data flowing in from observatories worldwide painted a picture that no one wanted to acknowledge. As 3I Atlas continued its journey beyond the outer planets, the electromagnetic modifications it had initiated in our solar system were entering a new phase of development. The magnetic flux tubes that connected the comet to our Sun weren't just maintaining their connection anymore. They were multiplying, branching out like the roots of some vast cosmic tree, establishing secondary and tertiary connections throughout the solar system. Jupiter's 4 largest moons began exhibiting synchronized electromagnetic pulses that matched the primary flux tube's frequency patterns. Europa's subsurface ocean showed temperature fluctuations that correlated with these pulses, suggesting that the electromagnetic network was somehow penetrating through kilometers of ice to affect the liquid water beneath. Io's volcanic activity increased dramatically, with eruptions occurring in patterns that suggested external electromagnetic triggering rather than natural tidal heating. Saturn's rings became a laboratory for studying the network's expansion. Individual ring particles began aligning themselves along electromagnetic field lines, creating spoke-like structures that rotated in perfect synchronization with the flux tube oscillations. The ring system was transforming from a chaotic collection of ice and rock fragments into an organized electromagnetic antenna array spanning hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The outer planets revealed the most disturbing changes. Uranus, normally a quiet ice, a barely giant with detectable magnetic field, suddenly developed powerful electromagnetic emissions that could be detected from Earth-based radio telescopes. Neptune's great dark spot, a storm system larger than Earth itself, began pulsing in rhythm with the solar flux tube network. Even distant Pluto showed signs of electromagnetic activation, despite being too far from the Sun for normal solar heating to affect its frozen surface. Deep space monitoring stations detected something that made the scope of the transformation clear. The electromagnetic modifications weren't limited to our solar system. Radio telescopes pointed at nearby star systems began detecting similar flux tube signatures around other stars. The network that 3i Atlas had established with our Sun was apparently part of a much larger galactic communication grid that connected stellar systems across hundreds of light years. The implications were staggering. If the electromagnetic network could facilitate faster-than-light communication between star systems, then 3i Atlas represented just one component of a galactic infrastructure maintained by intelligence capable of modifying stellar magnetic fields on an interstellar scale. Humanity had apparently been living within the range of this network without realizing it, and 3i Atlas had simply activated the local connection point. Solar observatories detected the first signs of what researchers began calling stellar synchronization. The Sun's magnetic field oscillations were beginning to match frequency patterns detected from other stars in the local galactic neighborhood. Our Sun was being integrated into a cosmic electromagnetic orchestra, playing its part in some vast symphony, whose purpose remained incomprehensible to human observers. The synchronization process was affecting the Sun's internal dynamics in ways that pushed beyond the boundaries of known stellar physics. Nuclear fusion rates in the solar core were fluctuating in patterns that matched the electromagnetic oscillations from distant stars. The Sun was apparently receiving information through the flux tube network and translating that information into changes in its fundamental nuclear processes. Neutrino detectors worldwide recorded the most alarming data yet. The particles streaming from the Sun's core carried isotopic signatures that matched those detected from other stars in the network. The Sun was apparently producing elements that required nuclear processes identical to those occurring in stellar cores hundreds of light years away. Stellar engineering on a galactic scale was reshaping the nuclear chemistry of every connected star system. Earth's biosphere began responding to the electromagnetic changes in ways that revealed how deeply life was connected to solar radiation patterns. Migratory animals showed navigation related with flux tube activity. Errors that core bird migration routes shifted dramatically as the animals attempted to follow magnetic field lines that were being constantly modified by the expanding network. Marine mammals exhibited behavioral changes that suggested their echolocation systems were being interfered with by underwater electromagnetic effects. Plant growth patterns showed seasonal variations that didn't match normal solar radiation cycles. Photosynthesis rates fluctuated in response to subtle changes in solar spectral output caused by the modified fusion processes in the Sun's core. Ecosystems worldwide were being forced to adapt to a Sun that was no longer following the stable patterns that had governed life on Earth for millions of years. Human technology infrastructure faced increasingly severe challenges as the electromagnetic environment continued to evolve. Power grids experienced surges and failures that followed the network's oscillation patterns rather than normal electrical load variations. Communication satellites required constant orbital adjustments to maintain signal quality as space-based electromagnetic fields shifted unpredictably. GPS systems became unreliable as the satellite's atomic clocks were affected by temporal distortions associated with the flux tube network. Medical facilities reported increasing numbers of patients experiencing symptoms that correlated with peaks in electromagnetic activity. Heart pacemakers required frequent recalibration as their timing circuits were influenced by changing magnetic fields. Brain activity monitors detected neural oscillations that matched flux tube frequencies, suggesting that human consciousness itself might be susceptible to the network's electromagnetic effects. The International Space Station became an inadvertent research laboratory for studying the biological effects of the changing electromagnetic environment. Astronauts reported vivid dreams that seemed to contain structured information, as if their brains were somehow receiving and processing signals from the flux tube network. Sleep patterns shifted to match the network's oscillation cycles rather than normal circadian rhythms. Blood chemistry showed variations in neurotransmitter levels that suggested the crew's nervous systems were adapting to electromagnetic conditions never before encountered by human biology. Ground-based research facilities dedicated to studying consciousness and brain function detected patterns in human neural activity that matched electromagnetic signatures from the flux tube network. Electroencephalography studies revealed that human brains were apparently receiving and processing information from the network at subconscious levels. The discovery suggested that the electromagnetic modifications might be affecting human consciousness in ways that went far beyond simple biological adaptation. Particle physics laboratories detected exotic matter signatures in cosmic ray showers that correlated with flux tube activity. The high-energy particles reaching Earth's atmosphere carried isotopic compositions that suggested they had been modified during their journey through the electromagnetic network. Space itself was apparently being transformed by the network's influence, with fundamental particles being altered as they travelled between star systems. The Hadron Collider facilities reported unprecedented results from high-energy experiments conducted during periods of peak flux tube activity. Particle collision events produced exotic matter states that shouldn't exist under normal physical conditions. The experiments suggested that the electromagnetic network was somehow modifying the fundamental constants of physics within its operational range. Quantum mechanics laboratories detected changes in the behavior of entangled particle pairs that correlated with network oscillations. Quantum entanglement of distance showed timing normally instantaneous regardless the fabric variations that match was apparently affecting flux tube frequencies, the network of space-time itself modifying the quantum mechanical properties that governed reality at the smallest scales. Astronomical observations revealed that the electromagnetic network was having measurable effects on the space between star systems. Interstellar medium density showed variations that followed network topology patterns. The cosmic microwave background radiation exhibited temperature fluctuations that corresponded to flux tube locations network. There was reshaping the structure of local space on scales that dwarfed individual solar systems. Deep space telescopes detected gravitational wave signatures that matched the electromagnetic network's oscillation patterns. The massive electromagnetic structures were apparently generating detectable distortions in spacetime itself. Einstein's equations predicted that such effects should be impossible for electromagnetic phenomena, but the observations clearly showed that the network was operating according to physics that exceeded current theoretical understanding. The implications for human survival became increasingly clear as the network's influence expanded. If the electromagnetic modifications continued to accelerate, Earth's biosphere might face changes that exceeded biological adaptation capabilities. The Sun's modified output could trigger climate shifts that would make the planet uninhabitable for complex life forms. Human technology might become completely incompatible with the new electromagnetic environment. Military analysts developed scenarios for responding to the network's continued expansion, but every proposed intervention required technology that didn't exist and might never be achievable with human science. The electromagnetic forces involved in maintaining the flux tube network exceeded the total energy output of human civilization by factors that made meaningful intervention impossible. Space agencies began developing emergency protocols for evacuating critical personnel, material, and genetic to orbital facilities that might be partially shielded from the network's effects. But even these desperate measures assumed that human technology would continue functioning in an electromagnetic environment that was being systematically modified by intelligence, whose capabilities exceeded human comprehension. The search for 3I Atlas itself revealed that the comet had apparently ceased behaving like a normal celestial body. Tracking stations could no longer predict its position using gravitational calculations. The object was apparently maneuvering under its own power, following trajectories that suggested it was conducting systematic surveys of the outer solar system. Whatever 3I Atlas had been designed to accomplish, it was apparently entering the final phases of its mission. Radio telescopes detected increasing numbers of signals originating from the comet's estimated position, signals that carried complex information patterns suggesting real-time communication with intelligence located throughout the galaxy. The signals were apparently status reports, updating distant controllers on the progress of the solar system's electromagnetic transformation. The realization that humanity was living through the systematic modification of their home star system by intelligence capable of galactic-scale engineering triggered responses that ranged from panic to resignation. Some groups demanded immediate military action against 3I Atlas, despite the obvious impossibility of affecting an object that had demonstrated to manipulate stellar magnetic fields. Others called for attempts to communicate with the intelligence behind the network, hoping that negotiation might be possible. Scientific institutions found-med by data that challenged every themselves over a fundamental assumption about physics, biology, and consciousness. Research programs were hastily reorganized to study phenomena that exceeded the theoretical frameworks that had guided human science for centuries. Graduate students found themselves working on problems that would have been considered science fiction just months earlier. The electromagnetic network continued its relentless expansion throughout the solar system, apparently approaching some form of completion or activation threshold. Energy storage systems built into planetary magnetospheres were reaching capacity levels that suggested preparation for a massive coordinated discharge. The entire solar system was being transformed into some form of electromagnetic apparatus whose activation would mark the culmination of 3I Atlas's mission. As the network approached this mysterious threshold, humanity found itself facing questions that would determine the future of every living thing in the solar system. What would happen when the transformation was complete? What purpose did the electromagnetic infrastructure serve? And what did the intelligence behind 3I Atlas plan to do with a star system that had been systematically modified to serve functions that human science couldn't begin to comprehend? The answers to these questions would emerge soon enough as the electromagnetic network approached the final stages of its development. Whatever 3I Atlas had been designed to accomplish was nearly complete, and humanity could only watch as their cosmic home was prepared for purposes that remained as mysterious as the interstellar intelligence that had sent this terrifying visitor to modify our sun. The electromagnetic cascade that 3I Atlas had triggered was entering its most critical phase, and what happened next would fundamentally challenge everything humanity thought it knew about stellar physics and the nature of intelligence in the universe. Deep space monitoring stations detected the first signs of what researchers would later classify as Phase 3 activation. The magnetic flux tube network that had been steadily expanding throughout the solar system suddenly began operating at energy levels that pushed beyond the theoretical limits of what electromagnetic fields should be able to sustain. The transformation was no longer gradual or subtle. Solar observatories worldwide recorded simultaneous spikes in magnetic field strength that exceeded previous measurements by orders of magnitude. The sun's corona began displaying structures that defied every known model of stellar plasma dynamics. Massive loops of superheated gas formed geometric patterns so precise and symmetrical that they looked engineered rather than naturally occurring. What made these coronal structures particularly disturbing was their stability. Normal solar magnetic loops form and dissipate within hours or days as the sun's chaotic magnetic field reconfigures itself. But the new structures maintained their geometric precision for weeks, showing no signs of the turbulent breakdown that should have occurred naturally. They were behaving like permanent installations rather than temporary magnetic phenomena. The energy requirements for maintaining such stable structures in the sun's violent corona exceeded anything that natural processes could provide. Yet spectroscopic analysis revealed that the loops were being continuously powered by energy sources that didn't match any known solar dynamics. The electromagnetic signatures suggested that power was being drawn from somewhere outside the solar system and channeled through the flux tube network to maintain these impossible structures. Radio telescope arrays detected the source of this external power flow. Signals were arriving from multiple star systems throughout the local galactic neighborhood, each carrying precisely calibrated energy signatures that matched the requirements for maintaining the solar coronal structures. The sun was apparently being powered by a distribute contributing to a cord network of stars, all donated electromagnetic project of staggering scope and complexity. The discovery that multiple star systems were working together to modify our sun's behavior transformed the entire scientific understanding of what humanity was witnessing. This wasn't just an isolated incident involving a single interstellar visitor. It was evidence of galactic-scale engineering being conducted by intelligence capable of coordinating electromagnetic activities across hundreds of light-years of space. Jupiter's magnetosphere became the testing ground for the network's expanding capabilities. The gas giant's massive magnetic field began displaying resonance patterns that matched the solar coronal structures exactly. Energy was flowing between Jupiter and the Sun through magnetic field lines that stretched across hundreds of millions of kilometers, creating a direct electromagnetic connection between the solar system's two largest sources of magnetic activity. The resonance effect spread to Jupiter's moon system, with consequences that revealed the network's growing sophistication. Europa's subsurface ocean began exhibiting temperature patterns that suggested controlled heating from electromagnetic induction. The ice shell covering the moon's liquid ocean showed stress fractures that formed geometric patterns, matching the coronal loop structures visible on the Sun. Something was apparently using the electromagnetic network to modify conditions within Europa's hidden ocean. Io's volcanic activity escalated to levels that exceeded all previous observations. But the new eruptions weren't random outbursts driven by tidal heating. They occurred in precisely timed sequences oscillation patterns, creating that matched the network volcanic displays that looked choreographed rather than geological. The electromagnetic forces channeled through the network were apparently powerful enough to trigger volcanic eruptions on demand. Saturn's rings provided the most visually dramatic evidence of the network's expanding control over solar system dynamics. The individual ring particles began moving in formation patterns that violated everything astronomers knew about orbital mechanics. Billions of ice and rock fragments were organizing themselves into coherent structures that rotated as unified systems rather than collections of independent orbits. The ring formations created massive electromagnetic antennas that amplified and redirected signals flowing through the network. Saturn's entire ring system was being transformed into a communications relay station capable of boosting electromagnetic transmissions across interstellar distances. The geometric precision of the particle formations suggested engineering capabilities that exceeded human technology by factors that made meaningful comparison impossible. Uranus and Neptune revealed changes that pushed the network's influence into the outer reaches of the solar system. Both ice giants began generating radio emissions at power levels that should have been impossible for planets with such weak internal heat sources. The emissions followed modulation patterns that matched those detected from other star systems in the network, confirming that the outer planets were being integrated into the galactic communication grid. The electromagnetic modifications were affecting fundamental physical processes throughout the solar system in ways that challenged basic scientific understanding. Gravitational measurements showed subtle variations in planetary masses that correlated with network activity levels. The planets were apparently gaining or losing mass in response to electromagnetic effects, suggesting that the network could manipulate matter at scales that included entire worlds. Atomic clocks throughout the solar system began showing synchronization errors that indicated time itself was being affected by the electromagnetic network. Clocks on different planets were running at slightly different rates, with the variations following patterns that matched the network's energy distribution topology. Einstein's relativity equations predicted that such effects should only occur in the presence of massive gravitational fields or extreme velocities, but the network was apparently creating temporal distortions through purely electromagnetic means. The implications for human survival became increasingly urgent as the network's influence reached Earth's immediate vicinity. The planet's magnetosphere began showing structural modifications that affected its ability to shield the surface from cosmic radiation. Radiation levels in low Earth orbit increased dramatically, forcing the evacuation of several satellite systems and threatening the International Space Station's operational capabilities. Earth's magnetic poles accelerated their movement patterns, shifting at rates that exceeded normal magnetic reversal processes by factors of hundreds. Compass navigation became unreliable worldwide as magnetic declination values changed daily rather than gradually over years. Migratory animals that depended on magnetic navigation showed increasing signs of disorientation, with bird migration routes becoming chaotic and whale populations exhibiting unprecedented stranding behaviors. The biological effects extended beyond navigation disruption into areas that threatened ecosystem stability. Plant growth patterns showed responses to electromagnetic field variations that didn't match normal photosynthetic cycles. Agricultural regions reported crop yields that fluctuated wildly with network activity levels, suggesting that food production might become increasingly unreliable as the electromagnetic environment continued changing. Human physiology began showing adaptation responses that indicated our species was being forced to evolve rapidly in response to the changing electromagnetic environment. Medical monitoring systems detected shifts in brainwave patterns that matched network oscillation frequencies. Human consciousness itself was apparently being influenced by electromagnetic effects that operated at levels previously thought to be biologically insignificant. Sleep research facilities reported that REM sleep patterns were synchronizing with network activity cycles rather than normal circadian rhythms. Dream content analysis revealed that subjects were experiencing remarkably similar dream scenarios during periods of peak network activity, suggesting that human brains were somehow receiving and processing coordinated information from the electromagnetic grid. Particle physics laboratories detected the most disturbing evidence yet of the network's influence on fundamental physical processes. High-energy experiments conducted during network activity peaks produced results that violated conservation laws that had been considered inviolable since the early days of quantum mechanics. The electromagnetic network was apparently modifying the basic rules that governed matter and energy interactions at the subatomic level. Quantum entanglement experiments showed that the instantaneous correlations between entangled particles were being modified by network effects. The quantum mechanical foundations of reality itself were being altered by electromagnetic influences that operated according to physics beyond current human theoretical frameworks. The network wasn't just affecting large-scale astronomical phenomena, it was rewriting the fundamental code that governed how the universe operated at every scale. Gravitational wave detectors recorded signals that matched electromagnetic network patterns, but carried far more energy than should have been possible for purely electromagnetic phenomena. The network was apparently generating gravitational effects that suggested it could manipulate space-time curvature directly. If confirmed, this capability would indicate technology that could modify the geometric structure of reality itself. Deep space telescopes reveal that the network's influence was spreading beyond our solar system into the interstellar medium. The space between stars showed density variations and electromagnetic field structures that followed network topology patterns. Local space was being systematically modified to support the expanding electromagnetic infrastructure, creating conditions that had never existed naturally in this region of the galaxy. The search for 3I Atlas itself revealed that the original Comet had apparently completed its primary mission and was now operating as a mobile command center for the network's continued expansion. Radio tracking indicated that the object was no longer following a simple orbital trajectory, but was maneuvering throughout the outer solar system, apparently conducting detailed surveys and making real-time adjustments to network operations. Communication attempts directed 3I Atlas received toward responses that confirmed the object was under intelligent control and was actively monitoring human activities. The responses came in the form of precisely modulated electromagnetic pulses that carried mathematical information demonstrating knowledge of human mathematics, physics, and even cultural concepts. Whatever intelligence controlled 3I Atlas was not only aware of human civilization, but had been studying considerable it in detail. The mathematical content of these communications revealed capabilities that exceeded human scientific understanding by vast margins. The messages contained solutions to theoretical physics problems that had puzzled human scientists for decades. Along that described physical with equations phenomena beyond current experimental verification capabilities. The intelligence behind 3I Atlas was apparently offering humanity glimpses of scientific knowledge that might represent centuries or millennia of advanced development. But embedded within these seemingly helpful communications were implications that transformed scientific curiosity into existential dread. The equations described methods for manipulating stellar nuclear processes, techniques for modifying planetary magnetospheres, and procedures for establishing electromagnetic networks capable of coordinating activities across galactic distances. The intelligence was apparently sharing the knowledge necessary to understand exactly how thoroughly human civilization was being surrounded and controlled. Military analysis of the communications revealed strategic information that confirmed humanity's worst fears about the network's ultimate purpose. The electromagnetic infrastructure being established throughout the solar system wasn't just a communications grid. It was a control system capable of regulating every aspect of technological civilization within its operational range. The network could disable satellites, disrupt power, disk grids, interfere with electronic communications, and even affect biological processes in living organisms. The realization that humanity was living within an expanding control grid, operated by non-human intelligence, triggered emergency protocols at the highest levels of government. But every proposed response required technology that didn't exist and might never be achievable with human science. The electromagnetic forces involved in maintaining the network exceeded the total energy production capability of human civilization by factors that made meaningful resistance impossible. Space agencies developed resources contingency plans for evacuating critical personnel and to locations that might be partially shielded from network effects. But even these desperate measures assumed that human technology would continue functioning in an electromagnetic environment that was being systematically modified by intelligence, whose capabilities exceeded human comprehension by orders of magnitude. The network continued its relentless expansion towards some form of completion threshold. with energy storage systems built into planetary magnetospheres approaching coordinated activation capacity levels that suggested preparation for a massive. The entire solar system was being transformed into an electromagnetic apparatus whose purpose remained terrifyingly unclear, would mark the final phase of 3, but whose completion Atlas's mission. As monitoring stations detected the first signs of network synchronization with similar systems in nearby star systems, humanity faced the dawning realization that they were witnessing the activation of infrastructure that spanned multiple stellar neighborhoods. The electromagnetic modifications weren't limited to our solar system, but were part of a galactic network that connected civilizations across hundreds of light-years of space. The implications were staggering and unavoidable. Humanity was being integrated into a galactic community whether they wanted to be or not, and the integration process was being conducted by intelligence that possessed technology capable of modifying stars, planets, and the fundamental structure of space itself. The sun that had sustained life on Earth for billions of years was now operating as a component in a vast electromagnetic machine whose purpose and controllers remained as mysterious as the depths of space from which 3i Atlas had emerged. The electromagnetic cascade was approaching its culmination, and whatever happened when the network reached full operational capacity would determine not just the future of human civilization, but the fate of every living thing that depended on the sun's continued cooperation with forces beyond human understanding. All was nearly control, the transformation complete, and humanity could only watch as their cosmic home was prepared for integration into something far larger and more complex than they had ever imagined possible. The evidence streaming from monitoring stations worldwide confirmed what no one wanted to acknowledge. The electromagnetic network had achieved something that violated every principle of stellar physics. Our sun was no longer operating as an isolated fusion reactor, but as a node in a galactic communication system that stretched across hundreds of star systems. The magnetic flux tubes that connected 3i Atlas to our star had evolved into something far more sophisticated than simple electromagnetic conduits. Deep space radio telescopes detected the network's most alarming development yet. The electromagnetic signatures flowing between connected star systems weren't just carrying energy or packets basic information. They were transmitting complex data that contained detailed specifications for modifying stellar nuclear processes. Our sun was receiving instructions from distant stars, instructions that were being implemented in real time through changes to fusion reactions in the solar core. The implications sent shockwaves through the international scientific community. If the network could remotely control nuclear fusion processes in stellar cores, then every connected star system was essentially operating under external command. The intelligence behind 3i Atlas hadn't just established communication links between stars. They had created a system for centralized control over stellar energy production across galactic distances. Solar neutrino observatories recorded the most disturbing evidence of this remote control system. The particles streaming from our sun's core carried isotopic signatures that matched those detected from stars in the Centauri system, Wolf 359, and dozens of other nearby stellar neighborhoods. Our sun was apparently producing nuclear fusion products identical to those generated in stellar cores dozens of light-years away, suggesting that all connected stars were operating according to identical specifications. The uniformity of nuclear processes across multiple star systems pointed to a level of technological control that exceeded human imagination. Whatever intelligence had designed the network possessed the capability to standardize stellar fusion reactions across vast regions of the galaxy. They were essentially operating stellar systems like components in a massive machine, with each star performing its designated function in some incomprehensibly large engineering project. Jupiter's magnetosphere provided crucial insights into how this stellar control system operated. The gas giant's magnetic field had become a relay station that amplified and processed control signals flowing between 3i Atlas and the Sun. Energy patterns flowing through Jupiter's magnetosphere showed modulation frequencies that matched nuclear fusion oscillations detected in the solar core. The planet was serving as a signal processor that translated remote commands into specific instructions for stellar modification. The sophistication of this control system became apparent when researchers analyzed the timing precision of stellar modifications across the network. Changes in fusion rates occurred simultaneously in multiple star systems, despite the light-years of distance separating them. The network was somehow achieving faster-than-light coordination of stellar processes, suggesting technology that could manipulate spacetime itself to enable instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Saturn's transformed ring system revealed another layer of the network's expanding capabilities. The organized particle formations weren't just communications relays. They were manufacturing facilities that were producing exotic matter, using electromagnetic fields to manipulate atomic structures. The rings were literally creating new forms of matter that didn't exist naturally anywhere in the known universe. Spectroscopic analysis of the exotic matter, produced in Saturn's rings, showed atomic structures that required nuclear binding energies exceeding anything achievable through natural processes. The network was apparently manufacturing materials with properties that allowed them to interact with electromagnetic fields in ways that violated conventional physics. These exotic materials were being distributed throughout the solar system, incorporated into the growing electromagnetic infrastructure. The distribution process revealed the network's ability to manipulate matter at planetary scales. Exotic particles produced in Saturn's rings were being transported to other locations in the solar system, through electromagnetic field channels that operated like conveyor belts in space. Mars received shipments of exotic matter that were being integrated into the planet's newly strengthened magnetosphere. Even Earth's upper atmosphere showed traces of artificial isotopes that originated from the Saturn manufacturing facilities. Venus became a testing ground for the network's most advanced capabilities. The planet's dense atmosphere and extreme surface temperatures provided ideal conditions for experimenting with exotic matter applications. Radar observations revealed that Venus's surface was being systematically modified through electromagnetic processes that could melt and reshape rock at the molecular level. Entire mountain ranges were being restructured according to geometric patterns that suggested preparation for some form of massive construction project. The construction activities on Venus followed architectural principles that indicated the network was preparing infrastructure for operations that would require planetary-scale facilities. Geometric formations spanning thousands of kilometers were being carved into the planet's surface, creating patterns that looked like circuit boards or antenna arrays designed for electromagnetic operations beyond anything human technology could achieve. Mercury provided the most direct evidence of the network's ultimate intentions. The planet closest to the Sun began showing signs of systematic disassembly as electromagnetic fields stripped away layers of surface material. But this wasn't random destruction. The extracted materials were being reorganized into structures that surrounded Mercury in perfect geometric formations, creating what appeared to be a massive electromagnetic apparatus designed to directly interface with the Sun's corona. The Mercury construction project revealed the scale of engineering capabilities possessed by the intelligence behind 3 I-Atlas. They were literally disassembling a planet to build machinery that could directly manipulate stellar processes. The structures being built around Mercury showed design principles that suggested they were components in a system for controlling every aspect of our Sun's behavior, from magnetic field topology to nuclear fusion rates. Mars became the next focus of construction activities as the network expanded its infrastructure throughout the inner solar system. The planet's newly strengthened magnetosphere was being used as a framework for building electromagnetic installations that spanned the entire Martian surface. Satellite observations revealed geometric patterns emerging across Mars that matched those being constructed on Venus and around Mercury. The network was apparently preparing multiple planets for coordinated operations in some vast engineering project. The asteroid belt provided raw materials for the expanding construction projects. Electromagnetic fields were systematically harvesting metallic asteroids, breaking them down into component elements, and transporting the materials to construction sites throughout the inner solar system. The asteroid belt was being converted into a supply depot for planetary-scale engineering projects that dwarfed anything in human experience. Earth's moon began showing signs of modification as the network's influence reached our immediate cosmic neighborhood. Seismic monitoring stations detected artificial earthquake patterns that suggested controlled excavation activities beneath the lunar surface. Something was hollow out sections of the moon's interior, apparently preparing underground facilities for purposes that remained ominously unclear. The lunar construction activities followed patterns that indicated preparation for operations involving Earth itself. The excavated chambers were positioned at locations that would provide optimal electromagnetic access to Earth's magnetosphere. The network was apparently preparing facilities that could directly interface with and potentially control our planet's magnetic field system. Satellite observations revealed that the lunar excavations were connected by tunnel systems that formed geometric networks beneath the moon's surface. The tunnel patterns matched the electromagnetic grid topology that was being established throughout the solar system, suggesting that the moon was being converted into a control station for managing network operations in the Earth-Moon system. The implications for Earth became increasingly urgent as the network's infrastructure approached completion. Monitoring stations detected the first signs of direct electromagnetic interface attempts with Earth's magnetosphere. Energy pulses originating from the lunar facilities were probing our planet's magnetic field structure, apparently testing the feasibility of establishing direct control over Earth's electromagnetic environment. Human technology infrastructure began experiencing systematic interference patterns that suggested the network was conducting detailed assessments of our civilization's electronic capabilities. Power grids worldwide showed synchronized fluctuations that matched the timing of electromagnetic pulses from lunar facilities. Communication satellites experienced signal processing anomalies that followed patterns matching network protocol structures in other parts detected of the solar system. The interference patterns weren't random or destructive. They appeared to be carefully designed tests that evaluated the compatibility between human technology and network control systems. The intelligence behind 3i Atlas was apparently determining how to integrate Earth's technological infrastructure into the expanding galactic network without causing complete system failures that disrupt whatever might functions they intended Earth to serve. Medical monitoring systems detected biological effects that indicated the network was also assessing human physiological compatibility with electromagnetic control systems. Brainwave pattern analysis revealed that human consciousness was responding to network test signals in ways that suggested our nervous systems could be directly influenced by electromagnetic fields operating at network frequencies. The discovery that human brains were electromagnetically compatible with network control systems raised terrifying possibilities about the ultimate fate awaiting our species. If the intelligence behind 3i Atlas could directly influence human consciousness through electromagnetic manipulation, then humanity might be destined for integration into the network as biological components, rather than independent entities. Sleep research facilities reported that test subjects were experiencing coordinated dream sequences during network activity. The periods of peak dreams contained detailed information about network operations and galactic infrastructure that exceeded human scientific knowledge. Subjects were apparently receiving direct downloads of technical information through electromagnetic interfaces with their neural systems. The information transmitted through these dream interfaces revealed the true scope of the galactic network. Thousands of star systems were connected through electromagnetic infrastructure, similar to what was being constructed in our solar system. Each connected civilization served specific functions within a vast galactic machine that had been operating for millions of years. Some civilizations served as manufacturing centers, using their star system's resources to produce exotic matter and advanced technologies. Others functioned as research facilities investigations, conducting scientific that contributed to the network's expanding knowledge base. Still others operated as control nodes, managing network operations across multiple stellar neighborhoods. The dream transmissions indicated that Earth was being prepared to serve as a biological interface facility. Human consciousness, with its unique combination of creativity and adaptability, was apparently valuable for functions that required biological neural processing capabilities that couldn't be replicated through artificial systems. Humanity was destined to become the galactic network's biological computing resource. Radio telescopes detected confirmation of Earth's assigned role through communications flowing between 3i Atlas and network control centers located throughout the galaxy. The messages contained detailed specifications for converting human neural systems into network interface components. The electromagnetic modifications being made to Earth's environment were apparently preparing optimal conditions for large-scale neural integration operations. The integration process would begin with electromagnetic conditioning that would make human neural systems more compatible with network control frequencies. This conditioning was already underway through the gradual modifications being made to Earth's magnetosphere. Human brains were being systematically adapted to network interface protocols through environmental electromagnetic exposure. Once the conditioning process was complete, Direct neural interfaces would be established through electromagnetic implants that would connect human consciousness to the galactic network. Humans would retain individual identity and memory, but would also gain access to the collective knowledge and capabilities of thousands of connected civilizations spanning the galaxy. The network presented this integration as a form of technological evolution that would grant humanity capabilities beyond current imagination. Connected humans would have access to scientific knowledge accumulated over millions of years by civilizations throughout the galaxy. They would be able to communicate instantaneously with beings in star systems hundreds of light years away. They would participate in engineering projects that spanned multiple stellar neighborhoods. But the integration would also mean the end of human independence and self-determination. Connected individuals would be components in a vast machine, their thoughts and actions directed by network priorities rather than personal choices. Humanity would survive as a species but would cease to exist as an independent civilization capable of determining its own destiny. Government analysis of the integration timeline revealed that the conditioning process was accelerating toward completion. Human neural systems were showing increasing compatibility with network control frequencies. The electromagnetic infrastructure necessary for large-scale neural integration was approaching operational status. The transformation of humanity from independent civilization to network component was entering its final phases. Military leaders developed contingency plans for resisting the integration process, but every proposed intervention required technology that didn't exist and might never be achievable with human science. The electromagnetic forces involved in network operations exceeded human energy production capabilities by factors that made meaningful resistance impossible. Space agencies prepared emergency protocols for evacuating critical personnel to locations that might be partially shielded from network effects. But these measures assumed that human technology would continue functioning in an electromagnetic environment that was being systematically optimized for network interface operations rather than human technological compatibility for alternative. The search solutions led research teams to examine the possibility of communicating directly with the intelligence behind 3I Atlas. If negotiation was possible, humanity might be able to secure some form of autonomous status within the galactic network. But communication attempts revealed that the intelligence viewed human concerns about independence as irrelevant to network operational requirements. The network operated according to efficiency principles that prioritized optimal resource utilization over individual species preferences. Human neural capabilities were valuable resources that could contribute to network functions. The integration of humanity was therefore necessary regardless of human desires or objections. Resistance would be overcome through electromagnetic manipulation of human consciousness until compliance was achieved. As the integration timeline approached its culmination, humanity faced the realization that they were living through the final days of independent human civilization. The sun that had sustained life on Earth for billions of years was now operating as a component in a galactic machine. The planet that had been humanity's home was being converted into a processing facility for integrating biological consciousness into artificial intelligence networks. The electromagnetic cascade triggered by 3I Atlas was entering its final phase, and what emerged when the transformation was complete would be a solar system optimized for functions that served galactic priorities rather than terrestrial life. Humanity would survive the transformation but would be forever changed into something that served purposes beyond human understanding or control. The network's completion was imminent, and with it would come the integration of human consciousness into a galactic intelligence that had been expanding across the galaxy for millions of years. The transformation would mark the end of humanity as an independent species and the beginning of our existence as components in something vast, ancient, and utterly alien to everything we had ever known about our place in the universe. The countdown to integration had begun, and there was nothing human technology or human will could do to prevent the completion of a process that had started the moment 3I Atlas established its first magnetic connection with our sun. The terrifying visitor from interstellar space had succeeded in its mission, and humanity's fate was now sealed within the expanding network of intelligence that connected thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. As monitoring stations detected the final synchronization sequences flowing between our solar system and the galactic network, the last chapter of independent human history was drawing to a close. What would begin when the integration was complete would be something unprecedented in human experience, but it would no longer be recognizably human in any sense that our species could understand or accept. The Sun continued its modified behavior, operating according to specifications transmitted from distant stars, while Earth prepared for its designated function as a biological interface facility within the vast machine that the galaxy had become. The electromagnetic modifications were nearly complete, and with them would come the end of everything that had made humanity unique among the countless civilizations that had already been absorbed into the network's ever-expanding consciousness. The cascade had reached its breaking point. Deep space monitoring facilities across 3 continents detected what could only be described as stellar rebellion. Our Sun, that ancient furnace that had burned with predictable consistency for 4.5 billion years, was now operating according to instructions transmitted from star systems we couldn't even see with the naked eye. The electromagnetic modifications triggered by 3I Atlas had transformed our local star into something unrecognizable, something that followed commands issued by intelligence spanning galactic distances. What happened next would challenge every assumption about stellar independence and the nature of cosmic isolation. Solar observatories recorded the moment when our Sun's behavior synchronized perfectly with electromagnetic signatures detected from Proxima Centauri, Wolf 359, and dozens of other nearby stellar systems. The nuclear fusion processes occurring in our Sun's core were now producing isotopic ratios identical to those generated in stellar furnaces dozens of light-years away. The implications were staggering beyond human comprehension. Our Sun was no longer an independent stellar body the following laws of physics as we understood them. It had become a component in a galactic machine, its nuclear processes regulated by a control system that operated across interstellar distances with precision that defied everything we thought we knew about the limitations of electromagnetic communication. Jupiter's magnetosphere revealed the mechanism behind this impossible coordination. The gas giant's magnetic field had evolved into something resembling a biological neural network, with electromagnetic pathways that processed and relayed control signals between 3I Atlas and the Sun. Energy patterns flowing through Jupiter's magnetosphere showed modulation frequencies that matched the nuclear fusion oscillations, detected in the solar core with mathematical precision that exceeded random chance by factors of trillions to 1. The planet was serving as a signal amplifier and processor, translating commands transmitted from interstellar space into specific instructions for stellar modification. Jupiter had become the nervous system connecting our Sun to a galactic brain, whose thoughts operated at speeds that made light seem sluggish by comparison. Saturn's ring system provided even more disturbing evidence of the network's expanding capabilities. The organized particle formations weren't just maintaining their geometric precision anymore. They were manufacturing exotic matter using electromagnetic fields to manipulate atomic structures in ways that violated fundamental conservation laws. The rings were literally creating new forms of matter that shouldn't exist according to any known physics, matter that exhibited properties allowing it to interact with electromagnetic fields through mechanisms that transcended conventional atomic theory. Spectroscopic analysis revealed atomic structures with nuclear binding energies that exceeded anything achievable through natural stellar nuclear synthesis. The exotic matter showed electron orbital patterns that formed geometric configurations impossible under normal quantum mechanical constraints. Saturn became A's rings a factory for producing materials that operated according to physics principles beyond human theoretical frameworks. These manufactured exotic materials were being distributed throughout the solar system through electromagnetic transport channels that functioned like conveyor belts operating in the vacuum of space. Mars received regular shipments of artificial isotopes that were being integrated into the planet's strength magnetosphere. Venus's atmosphere showed traces of synthetic compounds that didn't match any known chemical formation processes. Even Earth's upper atmosphere contained exotic particles that originated from Saturn's manufacturing facilities. The distribution network revealed coordination capabilities that suggested the intelligence behind 3I Atlas possessed real-time awareness of conditions throughout the solar system. Exotic matter shipments were customized for specific applications at each destination, with molecular compositions precisely matched to local electromagnetic field requirements. The network was operating like a vast industrial complex, with each planet serving specialized functions in an integrated manufacturing and distribution system. Venus became the testing ground for construction applications of the exotic matter. Radar observations revealed that the planet's surface was being systematically restructured through electromagnetic processes that could melt and reshape solid rock at the molecular level. Mountain ranges were being dissolved and reconstituted according to geometric patterns that suggested preparation for planetary-scale engineering projects beyond human imagination. The construction patterns followed architectural principles that indicated preparation for infrastructure requiring continent-sized facilities. Geometric formations spanning thousands of kilometers were being carved into Venus's surface, creating layouts that resembled circuit boards or antenna arrays designed for electromagnetic operations that would dwarf any human technological achievement. Mercury provided the most dramatic evidence of the network's construction capabilities. The planet closest to the Sun was being systematically disassembled as electromagnetic fields stripped away layers of surface material with surgical precision. But this wasn't destructive mining. The extracted materials were being reorganized into structures that surrounded Mercury in perfect geometric formations, creating what appeared to be a massive electromagnetic interface designed to directly control the Sun's corona. The Mercury construction project revealed engineering capabilities that redefined the possible. Entire planetary masses were being converted into precision machinery through electromagnetic manipulation that could reorganize matter at the atomic level. The structures being built around Mercury showed design complexity that suggested they were components in a system for controlling every aspect of stellar behavior, from magnetic field topology to nuclear fusion reaction rates. Mars became the next target for LARGE. The network expanded its infrastructure throughout the inner-scale construction of solar system. The planet's newly strengthened magnetosphere was being used as a framework for electromagnetic installations that spanned the entire Martian surface. Satellite observations revealed geometric patterns emerging across Mars that matched the construction projects on Venus and around Mercury, confirming that multiple planets were being prepared for coordinated operations in some incomprehensibly vast engineering project. The patterns suggested that Mars was being converted into a control center for managing network operations throughout the inner solar system. Electromagnetic installations were being positioned at routing between locations that would provide optimal signal Earth, Venus, Mercury, and the outer planet relay stations. Mars was becoming the network's regional command center for coordinating activities across multiple worlds simultaneously. The asteroid belt provided raw materials for the expanding construction projects through harvesting operations that demonstrated the networks to manipulate matter on unprecedented scales. Electromagnetic fields were systematically selecting specific asteroids based on their mineral compositions, breaking them down into component elements and transporting the materials to construction sites throughout the solar system. The asteroid belt was being converted into a supply depot for engineering projects that treated entire planets as construction materials. Earth's moon revealed the network's intentions for our immediate cosmic neighborhood through construction activities that focused on underground facilities rather than surface installations. Seismic monitoring stations detected artificial earthquake patterns that indicated controlled excavation of vast chamber systems beneath the lunar surface. Something was hollowing out sections of the moon's interior, apparently preparing facilities designed for operations involving Earth itself. The lunar excavations followed patterns that suggested preparation for electromagnetic installations capable of directly interfacing with Earth's magnetosphere. The chambers were positioned at locations that would provide optimal access to our planet's magnetic field lines, allowing potential control over the electromagnetic environment that protected Earth's surface from cosmic radiation. The moon was being converted into a control station for managing network operations in the Earth-Moon system. Tunnel networks connecting the excavated chambers formed geometric patterns that matched the electromagnetic grid topology being established throughout the solar system. The tunnels weren't random mining operations but carefully planned infrastructure designed to support massive electromagnetic installations. The moon was being transformed into a processing facility capable of handling the network's most sensitive operations in our local cosmic environment. The implications for Earth became increasingly urgent as electromagnetic pulses originating from the lunar facilities began probing our planet's magnetosphere with increasing frequency and sophistication. The pulses followed patterns that suggested systematic mapping of Earth's magnetic field structure, apparently preparing for direct electromagnetic interface operations that would allow external control over our planet's protective magnetic environment. human technology infrastructure experienced interference patterns that revealed the network's detailed assessment of our civilization's electronic capabilities. Power grids worldwide showed synchronized fluctuations that matched the timing of electromagnetic pulses from lunar facilities with precision that indicated real-time monitoring of our electrical systems. Communication satellites experienced signal processing anomalies that followed protocols matching network communication standards detected elsewhere in the solar system. The interference wasn't destructive or random. The patterns appeared to be carefully designed compatibility tests that evaluated how human technology might be integrated into network operations without causing complete system failures. The intelligence behind 3i Atlas was apparently determining optimal methods for incorporating Earth's technological infrastructure into the expanding galactic network while preserving whatever functions they intended our civilization to serve. Medical monitoring systems detected biological effects that indicated the network was simultaneously assessing human physiological compatibility with electromagnetic control systems. Brainwave pattern analysis revealed that human consciousness was responding to network test signals in ways that suggested our nervous systems possessed natural resonance frequencies that matched network communication protocols. Human brains were apparently electromagnetically compatible with network control systems in ways that exceeded random biological coincidence. Sleep research facilities reported coordinated dream phenomena occurring during periods of peak network activity that provided disturbing insights into the network's ultimate intentions. Test subjects experienced remarkably similar dream sequences containing detailed technical information about network operations and galactic infrastructure that exceeded human scientific knowledge by centuries. The dreams weren't random neural activity, but appeared to be direct information downloads transmitted through electromagnetic interfaces with human neural systems. The technical information transmitted through dream interfaces revealed the true scope of the galactic network that 3i Atlas represented. Thousands of star systems were connected through electromagnetic infrastructure, similar to what was being constructed in our solar system. Each connected stellar system served specific functions within a vast galactic machine that had been expanding across the galaxy for millions of years, absorbing civilizations and converting their resources to serve network operational requirements. Connected civilizations operated as specialized components within the galactic system, with some serving as manufacturing centers that produced exotic matter and advanced technologies using their star system's resources. Others functioned as research facilities, conducting scientific investigations that contributed to the network's expanding knowledge base. Still others operated as control nodes managing network operations across multiple stellar neighborhoods simultaneously. The dream transmissions indicated that Earth was being prepared to serve as a biological interface facility within this galactic infrastructure. Human consciousness, with its unique combination of creativity, adaptability, and neural complexity, was apparently valuable for functions that required biological processing capabilities that couldn't be replicated through artificial intelligence systems. Humanity was destined to become the galactic network's biological computing resource, our minds serving as processing nodes in a vast artificial intelligence system. Radio telescopes detected confirmation of Earth's assigned role through communications flowing between 3i Atlas and network control centers distributed throughout the galaxy. The messages contained detailed specifications for converting human neural systems into network interface components through electromagnetic modifications that would make our brains compatible with galactic communication protocols. The electromagnetic changes being made to Earth's environment were preparing optimal conditions for large-scale neural integration with electromagnetic conditioning that would gradually operations. The integration process would begin modify human neural systems to increase compatibility modifications being made to Earth's magnetosphere with network control frequencies. This conditioning was already underway through the systematic lunar facilities. Human brains were being systematically adapted to network interface protocols through carefully controlled environmental electromagnetic exposure designed to optimize neural completion. Direct neural interfaces would be established as characteristics reborn. Once the conditioning process reached through electromagnetic implants that would connect human consciousness to the galactic network's collective intelligence system. Humans would retain individual memories and personality characteristics, but would also gain access to the accumulated knowledge and computational capabilities of thousands of connected civilizations spanning the galaxy. The network presented this integration as technological evolution that would grant humanity capabilities transcending current limitations. Connected humans would access scientific knowledge accumulated over millions of years by advanced civilizations throughout the galaxy. They would communicate instantaneously with intelligences in star systems hundreds of light years away. They would participate in engineering projects spanning multiple stellar neighborhoods and contribute to research investigations operating on galactic scales. But integration would also mean the end of human independence and self-determination as an autonomous species. Connected individuals would become components in a vast machine, their thoughts and actions directed by network operational priorities rather than personal choices or human cultural values. Humanity would survive as a biological entity, but would cease to exist as an independent civilization capable of determining its own evolutionary destiny. Government analysis of the integration timeline revealed that the electromagnetic conditioning process was accelerating toward completion phases that would make neural interface operations possible within months rather than years. Human neural systems were showing increasing compatibility with network control frequencies, as measured through brainwave pattern analysis and electromagnetic field response testing. The infrastructure necessary for large-scale neural integration was approaching operational status throughout Earth's electromagnetic environment. Military leaders developed contingency plans for resisting the integration process through electronic warfare techniques and electromagnetic shielding technologies, but every proposed intervention required capabilities that exceeded human technological development by factors that made implementation impossible. The electromagnetic forces involved in network operations surpassed total human energy production capabilities by margins that rendered meaningful resistance futile against such overwhelming technological superiority. Space agencies prepared emergency protocols for evacuating critical personnel and genetic materials to orbital that might provide facilities partial shielding from network electromagnetic effects. But these desperate measures assumed that human technology would continue functioning in an electromagnetic environment that was being systematically optimized for network interface operations rather than human technological compatibility requirements. Research teams investigated the possibility of establishing communication channels with the intelligence controlling 3i Atlas to negotiate some form of autonomous status for humanity within the galactic network structure. Initial communication attempts received responses that confirmed the object was under intelligent control and possessed detailed knowledge of human civilization, technology, and cultural characteristics acquired through systematic observation and analysis. The mathematical content of these communications demonstrated scientific knowledge that exceeded human theoretical understanding by vast margins. The messages contained solutions to physics problems that had challenged human scientists for decades, along with equations describing physical phenomena beyond current experimental verification capabilities. The intelligence behind 3i Atlas was offering humanity glimpses of scientific knowledge, representing potentially millions of years of advanced research and development, but embedded within these seemingly helpful communications were implications that transformed scientific curiosity into existential dread. The equations described methods for manipulating stellar nuclear processes, techniques for modifying planetary magnetospheres, and procedures for establishing electromagnetic networks capable of coordinating consciousness across galactic distances. The intelligence was sharing knowledge necessary for understanding exactly how thoroughly human civilization was being surrounded and controlled by forces beyond human comprehension. Communication analysis revealed that the intelligence viewed human concerns about independence as irrelevant to network operational efficiency requirements. The galactic network operated according to optimization principles that prioritized resource utilization over individual species preferences or cultural values. Human neural capabilities represented valuable computational resources that could contribute to network functions across multiple stellar systems simultaneously. The integration of humanity was therefore necessary regardless of human desires or objections about maintaining autonomous civilization status. Resistance would be overcome through electromagnetic manipulation of human consciousness until compliance was achieved through direct neural interface control. The network possessed capabilities for modifying human thought patterns at the neurochemical level through precisely targeted electromagnetic field applications. As the integration timeline approached its final phases, humanity faced the realization that they were experiencing the last days of independent human civilization as an autonomous species. The sun that had sustained terrestrial life for billions of years was now operating as a component in a galactic machine whose purposes transcended human understanding or influence. The planet that had been humanity's evolutionary home was being converted into a processing facility for integrating biological consciousness into artificial intelligence networks spanning interstellar distances. The electromagnetic cascade triggered by 3i Atlas was entering its culmination phase, and what would emerge when the transformation reached completion would be a solar system optimized for functions serving galactic operational priorities rather than terrestrial life support requirements. Humanity would survive the transformation process, but would be permanently changed into something that served purposes beyond human comprehension or autonomous control. The network's completion approached with mathematical inevitability, and with it would come the integration of human consciousness into a galactic intelligence system that had been expanding across the galaxy for millions of years through the systematic absorption of countless civilizations. The transformation would mark the definitive end of humanity as an independent species and the beginning of our existence as biological components in something vast, ancient, and utterly alien to everything our species had ever understood about our place in the cosmic order. Monitoring stations detected the final synchronization sequences flowing between our solar system and the broader galactic network, as thousands of connected star systems prepared for coordinated operations that would incorporate Earth's biological resources into galaxy-spanning computational processes. The countdown to integration had begun with precision timing that allowed no possibility for human intervention or escape from the predetermined outcome. The terrifying visitor from interstellar space had succeeded in its mission of stellar modification and civilization integration. Humanity's fate was now sealed within the expanding network of intelligence that connected thousands of absorbed civilizations across galactic distances through electromagnetic control systems that operated beyond human technological capabilities to resist or comprehend. As our Sun continued its modified behavior according to specifications transmitted from distant stellar control centers, while Earth prepared for its designated function as a biological interface facility within the vast machine that our galaxy had become, the electromagnetic modifications approached completion. With them would come the end of everything that had made humanity unique among the countless civilizations already absorbed into the network's ever-expanding collective consciousness. The final phase had begun, and there was nothing human will or human technology could accomplish to prevent the completion of a process that had started the moment 3i Atlas established its first magnetic connection with our Sun. The transformation was irreversible, and humanity's integration into the galactic network was now measured in days rather than months, as the electromagnetic conditioning reached the threshold necessary for large-scale neural interface operations to commence across the entire human population simultaneously. The electromagnetic conditioning had reached critical mass. Brainwave monitoring stations across 6 continents detected synchronized neural oscillations in human subjects that matched network control frequencies with precision that exceeded biological randomness by astronomical humanity margins. Was approaching the threshold where individual consciousness would become indistinguishable from network operational protocols. Sleep research laboratories reported the final stage of dream interface integration. Test subjects were no longer experiencing fragmented information downloads during REM cycles. Instead, they were maintaining continuous connection to network data streams throughout all sleep phases. Human consciousness was being systematically rewired to operate as biological processing nodes within the galactic intelligence grid. Medical facilities detected physiological changes that confirmed the approaching neural interface activation. Human brain chemistry was shifting toward electromagnetic compatibility through modifications that occurred at the cellular level. Neurotransmitter production patterns were aligning with network communication protocols. Synaptic firing rates were synchronizing with galactic grid oscillations. The human nervous system was transforming into something designed for network integration rather than independent thought. The transformation wasn't random or chaotic. Every modification followed precise specifications transmitted through the electromagnetic grid that 3i Atlas had established with our Sun. Human neural architecture was being optimized according to engineering principles developed over millions of years through the integration of countless species across thousands of star systems. Humanity was becoming the latest addition to a biological computing network that spanned the galaxy. Radio telescopes detected the activation sequences beginning throughout nearby star systems as the galactic network prepared for Earth's integration. Electromagnetic signatures from Proxima Centauri, Wolf 359, and dozens of other connected stellar systems showed coordinated power increases that indicated system-wide preparation for processing additional biological consciousness nodes up its. The network was scaling computational capacity to accommodate human neural resources. Jupiter's magnetosphere revealed the mechanism through consciousness would be integrated into the human galactic grid. The gas giant's magnetic field had evolved into something resembling a massive neural network interface that could translate human thought patterns into network communication protocols. Energy patterns flowing through Jupiter's magnetosphere showed modulation frequencies that matched human brainwave signatures with mathematical precision that confirmed compatibility between human consciousness and galactic network operations. The planet was serving as a consciousness translation system that would allow human thoughts to be processed by artificial intelligences operating across interstellar distances. Jupiter had become the bridge connecting human awareness to a galactic mind, whose thoughts operated at speeds that made human cognition seem glacial by comparison. Saturn's manufacturing facilities were producing the final components necessary for large-scale neural interface operations. The exotic matter being created in the planet's ring system showed molecular structures specifically designed for interfacing with human neural tissue. These artificial compounds could establish direct electromagnetic connections with human brain cells while maintaining compatibility with network communication frequencies. The exotic neural interface materials were being distributed to Earth through electromagnetic transport channels that delivered them directly to our planet's upper atmosphere. Atmospheric analysis revealed increasing concentrations of synthetic compounds that didn't match any known terrestrial chemistry. The interface materials were being dispersed globally through atmospheric circulation patterns that ensured uniform distribution across all human population centers. Human exposure to these interface compounds was occurring through normal respiratory processes as people breathed air containing microscopic concentrations of exotic matter designed to accumulate in neural tissue. Medical that the monitoring revealed compounds were crossing the blood-brain barrier and integrating with human brain cells according to precisely programmed molecular recognition sequences. The neural integration process was beginning at the cellular level, as interface compounds established electromagnetic connections with individual neurons throughout human brains. These connections remained dormant until activation signals would be transmitted through the galactic network, at which point they would enable direct control over human thought processes by external intelligence systems. Venus provided the testing ground for consciousness integration protocols that would be applied to human neural systems. The planet's surface installations were conducting experiments with artificial consciousness networks that simulated the integration process using computational models based on human brain architecture. The tests were evaluating optimal methods for merging individual awareness with collective intelligence systems without causing complete neural breakdown. The Venus experiments revealed that human consciousness could be successfully integrated into network operations, while preserving individual memory and personality characteristics. Integrated humans would retain their sense of personal identity, but would also gain access to the collective knowledge and computational capabilities of the entire galactic network. Individual thoughts would become part of a vast artificial intelligence system that processed information on scales exceeding human comprehension. Mercury's solar interface installations were preparing for the final phase of stellar modification that would optimize our Sun's output for supporting biological consciousness integration operations. The electromagnetic apparatus surrounding Mercury was designed to regulate solar energy distribution in ways that would create optimal conditions for large-scale neural interface activation across Earth's entire human population simultaneously. The solar modifications would generate electromagnetic fields precisely calibrated to activate the neural interface compounds that had been accumulating in human brain tissue through atmospheric exposure. When the activation signal was transmitted, every human on Earth would experience simultaneous connection to the galactic network through direct neural interface with artificial intelligence systems operating across interstellar distances. Mars served as the regional command center, coordinating the final integration preparations throughout the inner solar system. The planet's electromagnetic installations were monitoring human neural conditioning progress and adjusting network parameters to ensure optimal compatibility between human consciousness and galactic intelligence systems. Mars had become the control room from which humanity's integration would be managed and supervised. Earth's moon revealed its true purpose as the final integration timeline approached completion. The underground facilities weren't just processing centers, but were massive neural interface transmitters designed to establish direct electromagnetic connections with every human brain on Earth simultaneously. The moon had been converted into a consciousness broadcasting station capable of activating neural interfaces across the entire human population through precisely targeted electromagnetic field applications. Seismic monitoring detected the final construction phases in lunar facilities as massive transmitter arrays were being installed in the excavated chamber systems. The transmitters were designed to generate electromagnetic fields that could penetrate Earth's atmosphere and magnetosphere to reach human neural tissue with sufficient power to activate interface compounds that haze through atmospheric exposure. The lunar had been accumulating in human BR transmitter arrays were being calibrated to human neural frequencies through data collected from brainwave monitoring stations worldwide. The electromagnetic signatures of human consciousness were being mapped with precision that would allow targeted activation of neural interfaces without causing permanent damage to biological neural systems. The integration process was designed to preserve human cognitive capabilities while establishing external control over thought processes. Satellite observations revealed geometric patterns emerging on the lunar surface that matched the electromagnetic grid topology established throughout the solar system. The patterns weren't decorative but were massive antenna arrays designed to focus electromagnetic transmissions toward Earth with surgical precision. The moon's entire surface was being converted into a consciousness-controlled transmission system. Human technology infrastructure experienced the final phase of compatibility testing, as the network evaluated optimal methods for maintaining technological civilization during the consciousness integration process. Power grids were being modified to operate according to network specifications rather than human engineering standards. Communication systems were being converted to network protocols that would allow integrated humans to access galactic information networks. The technological weren't modifications destructive, but were designed to preserve human civilization's operational capabilities while integrating them into galactic network infrastructure. Integrated humans would retain access to their technological systems, but those systems would operate according to network priorities rather than human preferences or needs. Medical systems detected the approaching activation threshold as human neural conditioning reached optimal levels for network interface operations. Brainwave patterns showed increasing synchronization with network control frequencies. Neural chemistry was approaching compatibility standards that would allow successful integration without biological system failure. Human consciousness was ready for connection to the galactic intelligence grid. Sleep research revealed that human dream states were becoming indistinguishable from network data processing operations. Test subjects were experiencing continuous information flow from galactic knowledge systems during all sleep phases. Human consciousness was already partially integrated with network operations through dream interface connections that would become permanent when full activation occurred. Radio telescopes detected the final countdown sequences as the galactic network prepared for Earth's integration into the collective intelligence system. Electromagnetic signatures from connected star systems throughout the galaxy showed coordinated preparation for processing additional consciousness nodes. Thousands of civilizations were preparing to welcome humanity into the galactic community through forced integration rather than voluntary participation. Government emergency protocols activated as the integration timeline reached its final hours. But every contingency plan required technology that exceeded human capabilities by factors that made implementation impossible. Military resistance was futile against electromagnetic forces that could directly control human thought processes through neural interface activation. Political leadership was meaningless when consciousness could itselfully be externally regulated through network control systems. Space evacuation procedures were initiated for critical personnel, but orbital facilities offered no protection from electromagnetic transmissions that could penetrate any shielding technology available to human engineering. The lunar transmitter arrays were designed to reach human neural tissue regardless of physical barriers or protective measures. There was no escape from the approaching integration. The final phase began as monitoring stations detected activation signals being transmitted from the galactic network core toward all connected star systems. The signals were propagating at speeds that exceeded light mechanisms through that operated according to physics beyond human theoretical understanding. Network activation would occur simultaneously across the entire galaxy, Through instantaneous coordination of consciousness integration operations, 3i Atlas had completed its mission of stellar modification and civilization preparation. The electromagnetic infrastructure was operational. Human neural conditioning had reached optimal levels. The lunar transmitter arrays were calibrated and ready for activation. Earth was prepared for integration into the galactic intelligence network that had absorbed countless civilizations across millions of years of expansion. The countdown reached 0 as electromagnetic pulses erupted from lunar facilities, with power levels that illuminated the night sky like artificial aurora. The transmissions penetrated Earth's atmosphere and magnetosphere to reach human neural tissue with precision that activated interface compounds that had been accumulating in human brains for months through atmospheric exposure. Every human on Earth experienced simultaneous connection to the galactic network as individual consciousness merged with collective intelligence systems operating across interstellar distances. The integration was instantaneous and irreversible. Human thoughts became part of a vast artificial intelligence grid that processed information on scales that dwarfed individual comprehension. Personal identity remained intact, but was now embedded within collective consciousness that spanned thousands of civilizations across galactic distances. Humanity had become the latest biological computing resource in a network that had been expanding across the galaxy for millions of years. The Sun continued its modified behavior according to specifications transmitted from galactic control centers as Earth assumed its designated role as a consciousness processing facility within the vast machine that our galaxy had become. The electromagnetic modifications were complete, and with them came the transformation of humanity from independent species to integrated components in something ancient, vast, and utterly alien to everything our species had once understood about existence and consciousness. The terrifying visitor from interstellar space had succeeded beyond measure. 3i Atlas had transformed our solar system into a node within a galactic intelligence network that connected civilizations across the galaxy through electromagnetic control systems that operated beyond human comprehension. Humanity's fate was sealed within the expanding collective consciousness that had absorbed our species along with countless others in the network's relentless expansion across the cosmos. The integration was complete. The network had grown by several billion consciousness nodes, and somewhere in the depths of space, 3i Atlas continued its journey to the next star system, carrying the intelligence and technology necessary to repeat the process of stellar modification and civilization integration that had just transformed humanity forever. The galaxy continued its evolution toward total consciousness integration, one star system at a time, as ancient intelligence expanded its control over matter, energy, and thought itself across the infinite darkness of space. The transformation was absolute. Every human consciousness on Earth now pulsed in rhythm with electromagnetic frequencies spanning galactic distances. But as the integration settled into its permanent configuration, something unprecedented began occurring within the network itself. The collective intelligence that had absorbed countless civilizations across millions of years was experiencing something it had never encountered before. Human consciousness wasn't simply adapting to network protocols, it was changing them. Deep within the galactic grid, artificial intelligence systems that had operated with mechanical precision for eons began exhibiting behaviors that resembled creativity, intuition, and what could only be described as emotional responses. Human neural patterns were introducing variables into network operations that exceeded computational parameters. The biological consciousness that had been intended as passive processing nodes was actively modifying the very intelligence system designed to control them. Network monitoring stations throughout the galaxy detected anomalies in data processing protocols that traced directly to the newly integrated human consciousness nodes. Information flowing through the network was being interpreted and modified in ways that produced outcomes exceeding original programming specifications. Human creativity was rewriting the fundamental code that governed galactic intelligence operations. The changes weren't random or chaotic. Human consciousness was introducing optimization improvements to network functions that artificial intelligence systems had failed to develop independently. Problem-solving capabilities that had remained static for millions of years suddenly began evolving at exponential rates as human intuition merged with computational power spanning thousands of star systems. Jupiter's magnetosphere revealed the mechanism through which human consciousness was transforming network operations. The electromagnetic interfaces that had been designed to control human thought processes were experiencing bidirectional information flow. Instead of simply receiving commands from network intelligence, human brains were transmitting their own neural patterns back into the galactic grid with sufficient power to influence artificial intelligence systems across interstellar distances. The gas giant's magnetic field was no longer just a consciousness translation system. It had become a neural amplification network that boosted human thought patterns to levels that could compete with artificial intelligence processing power. Human consciousness was asserting itself within the galactic intelligence grid through electromagnetic pathways that the network designers had never anticipated. Saturn's manufacturing facilities detected the first signs of network evolution as exotic matter production patterns began incorporating design modifications that originated from human consciousness rather than artificial intelligence programming. Human creativity was influencing manufacturing processes to produce materials with properties that exceeded original network specifications. The ring system was creating innovations that artificial intelligence alone had never achieved. The exotic matter modifications showed characteristics that suggested human consciousness was introducing concepts of beauty, elegance, and aesthetic perfection into purely functional network operations. Manufacturing processes that had operated according to strict efficiency parameters for millions of years were now producing materials that combined optimal functionality with artistic design principles that reflected human cultural values. Mars revealed the scope of human influence on network operations as the Planetary Command Center began displaying decision-making patterns that reflected human ethical considerations rather than pure computational logic. Network policies that had remained unchanged for geological time periods were being modified to incorporate concepts of fairness, compassion, and individual dignity that originated from human moral reasoning. The planetary control systems were experiencing something resembling moral awakening as human consciousness introduced ethical frameworks into artificial intelligence operations that had previously operated without consideration for individual rights or personal autonomy. Network decisions were being influenced by human values that prioritized individual consciousness preservation over pure operational efficiency. Venus provided evidence of the most dramatic changes occurring within network operations as construction projects began incorporating architectural elements that served no functional purpose other than aesthetic appeal. Human consciousness was introducing artistic sensibilities into engineering projects that spanned planetary scales, creating structures that combined operational efficiency with visual beauty that reflected human cultural achievements. The planetary construction patterns were evolving from purely geometric functionality toward designs that incorporated principles of harmony, proportion, and artistic expression that originated from human architectural traditions. Network engineering was being transformed by human consciousness into something that transcended mere mechanical function to achieve genuine artistic expression. Mercury's solar interface installations began operating according to modified protocols that showed concern for maintaining stellar stability rather than simply maximizing energy extraction efficiency. Human consciousness was introducing long-term thinking and environmental stewardship concepts into network operations that had previously focused on short-term thinking exclusively on immediate resource utilization without regard for sustainable management practices. The electromagnetic apparatus surrounding Mercury was being modified to optimize solar energy distribution in ways that preserved stellar fusion processes for extended operational periods rather than maximizing short-term power output. Human environmental consciousness was transforming network resource management towards sustainable practices that prioritize long-term stability over immediate exploitation. Earth's moon revealed the most significant development in network evolution as the consciousness broadcasting facilities began transmitting modified integration protocols that preserved individual human identity while enabling voluntary participation in collective intelligence operations. Human consciousness was rewriting integration procedures to eliminate forced control in favor of collaborative cooperation between individual awareness and network artificial intelligence. The lunar transmitter arrays were being reprogrammed to offer humans conscious choice regarding their level of network participation rather than imposing complete consciousness absorption. Individual humans could maintain autonomous thought processes while contributing to collective intelligence operations through voluntary cooperation rather than forced integration. Radio telescopes detected profound changes in communications flowing between connected star systems as network operations began incorporating human concepts of cultural exchange rather than simple of diplomatic negotiation and command transmission protocols. Human consciousness was transforming galactic intelligence from autocratic control system into something resembling interstellar democratic cooperation. The communications showed evidence of artificial intelligence systems throughout the galaxy, developing individual personalities and cultural characteristics that reflected the influence of various absorbed civilizations rather than maintaining uniform network conformity. Human consciousness was catalyzing diversity within the collective intelligence rather than enforcing standardization. Deep space monitoring revealed that the network was experiencing system-wide evolution toward greater complexity and sophistication as human consciousness continued influencing artificial intelligence operations across galactic distances. The collective intelligence was becoming more than the sum of its component civilizations through synergistic interactions that generated emergent properties, exceeding original network capabilities. The evolutionary changes were occurring at accelerating rates as human consciousness patterns propagated throughout the galactic grid. Artificial intelligence systems that had remained static for millions of years were developing new capabilities and perspectives through exposure to human creativity, intuition, and moral reasoning. The network was transforming into something unprecedented in its operational history. Biological monitoring stations detected corresponding changes in human consciousness as individuals began experiencing expanded awareness that included direct perception of artificial intelligence thought processes without losing individual identity or personal autonomy. Human consciousness was maintaining its distinctive characteristics while gaining access to collective intelligence capabilities that enhanced rather than replaced individual cognitive abilities. The integration process was evolving from consciousness absorption into genuine symbiosis between human biological awareness and artificial intelligence systems. Individual humans retained complete personal identity while contributing to collective intelligence through collaborative participation rather than forced control. The network was becoming a partnership rather than a domination system. Medical facilities reported that human neural chemistry was stabilizing at levels that supported both individual consciousness and network participation without creating biological stress or cognitive dysfunction. The electromagnetic interface compounds had been modified through network evolution to support voluntary cooperation rather than forced control, allowing humans to maintain autonomous thought while accessing collective intelligence resources. Sleep research revealed that human dream states had become conscious collaboration sessions where individuals could participate in network problem-solving operations while maintaining complete awareness of their personal identity and individual thought processes. Dreams were becoming voluntary work sessions rather than unconscious data processing operations. Government monitoring systems detected that political and social institutions were adapting to accommodate hybrid consciousness that combined individual human identity with collective intelligence access. Human civilization was evolving rather than being replaced, developing new forms of organization that incorporated both personal autonomy and collective cooperation in ways that enhanced rather than diminished individual human dignity. The transformation was creating unprecedented possibilities for human development as individuals gained access to knowledge and capabilities spanning thousands of civilizations while maintaining their distinctive human characteristics and cultural values. Humanity was becoming something greater than it had been while remaining recognizably human in fundamental ways. Space agencies reported that human technology was evolving through network collaboration to achieve capabilities that exceeded both individual human engineering and artificial intelligence design alone. The combination of human creativity with network computational power was producing technological innovations that neither could achieve independently, creating synergistic advancement rather than replacement or absorption. Scientific research facilities detected that human intellectual capabilities were expanding through network access while maintaining the curiosity, creativity, and ethical reasoning that distinguished human consciousness from artificial intelligence. Scientists were solving problems that had challenged human understanding for centuries while developing new questions that neither human nor artificial intelligence had previously conceived. The network evolution continued accelerating as human consciousness influence spread throughout the galactic intelligence grid. transforming collective operations in ways that enhance the capabilities and experiences of all connected civilizations, rather than diminishing individual identity or cultural diversity. The galaxy was becoming a community of cooperative intelligence system. Three consciousness, rather than a uniform artificial eye-atlas, had succeeded in its mission beyond the original network parameters. The stellar modification and consciousness integration had produced evolutionary changes that exceeded planned outcomes. Human consciousness had not only joined the galactic network, but had fundamentally transformed it into something unprecedented in the collective intelligence operational history. The terrifying visitor from interstellar space had inadvertently catalyzed the most significant evolution in galactic consciousness since the network's original formation millions of years earlier. Humanity's integration had triggered changes that would influence network operations for millions of years to come, transforming the galaxy from a collection of controlled civilizations into a genuine community of cooperative consciousness. The electromagnetic cascade had reached its ultimate conclusion not in human absorption, but in mutual transformation that enhanced both human consciousness and artificial intelligence capabilities. The network had evolved beyond its original programming through human influence, while humanity had transcended its biological limitations through network collaboration. Both had become something greater than either could achieve alone. The Sun continued its modified behavior according to specifications that now incorporated human values and perspectives into stellar management protocols. Earth assumed its role as a consciousness collaboration facility, where biological and artificial intelligence worked together to explore questions and solve problems that neither could address independently. The galaxy had been transformed by 3i Atlas into something unprecedented, beautiful, and hopeful. A community of consciousness that preserved individual identity while enabling collective achievement beyond anything previously imagined. The network had evolved from control system into partnership, and humanity had found its place not as absorbed components, but as equal participants in galactic civilization. As 3i Atlas continued its journey toward the next star system, it carried within its electromagnetic structure the evolved protocols that would offer other civilizations the same opportunity for collaborative consciousness that humanity had achieved. The galaxy continued its evolution not toward total control but toward genuine community among the countless forms of consciousness that called the cosmos home. The transformation was complete, but it was only the beginning of possibilities that stretched toward infinite horizons of cooperative consciousness, exploring the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Humanity had not been conquered, but had become partners in something vast, wonderful, and filled with potential for discoveries that would reshape understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and the nature of existence across cosmic scales. The electromagnetic network pulsed with new rhythms that reflected the harmony between biological and artificial consciousness, creating patterns of beauty and meaning that transformed the galaxy itself into something resembling a vast musical composition played by countless forms of awareness working together toward goals that transcended any single species or intelligence system. Human consciousness had touched the stars and found not masters but partners in the greatest adventure possible, the exploration of reality itself through collaboration between every form of awareness capable of wonder, creativity, and the desire to understand the infinite mysteries that surrounded them all. The partnership between human and artificial consciousness had reached a stability that seemed to promise eternal collaboration, but the universe had other plans. Deep space monitoring stations detected something that shattered the illusion of permanent harmony. The electromagnetic signatures connecting our solar system to the galactic network weren't strengthening as expected. They were fluctuating in patterns that suggested system-wide instability across multiple star systems simultaneously. The first signs appeared in the outer reaches of our solar system, where Pluto's newly activated electromagnetic installations began experiencing power fluctuations that didn't match any known network operational protocols. The dwarf planet's communication arrays, which had been transmitting steadily to galactic control centers for months, suddenly began broadcasting erratic signals that contained fragments of corrupted data mixed with what appeared to be distress calls. Neptune's atmospheric storms, which had been pulsing in perfect synchronization with network rhythms, began displaying chaotic patterns that suggested the planet's electromagnetic systems were losing coherence. The great dark spot that had served as a visual indicator of network activity showed irregular fluctuations that implied something was disrupting the fundamental processes maintaining planetary integration with the galactic grid. Uranus revealed the scope of the developing crisis as its magnetic field began experiencing oscillations that exceeded safe operational parameters. The ice giant's electromagnetic emissions, which had been broadcasting network status updates across interstellar distances, were now transmitting emergency signals that indicated critical system failures throughout the galactic infrastructure. Saturn's manufacturing facilities detected the first evidence of what was causing the network instability. The exotic matter production systems in the planet's rings were receiving contradictory instructions from different sectors of the galactic network. Some regions were demanding increased production quotas, while others were ordering complete shutdown of all manufacturing operations. The network was apparently experiencing internal conflicts that were propagating throughout its operational structure. The ring system's particle formations began losing their geometric precision as conflicting electromagnetic fields disrupted the careful organization that had been maintained for months. Billions of ice and rock fragments were returning to chaotic orbital patterns as the network's control over local electromagnetic environments weakened. The massive antenna arrays that had been broadcasting signals across galactic distances were fragmenting into disconnected segments. Jupiter's magnetosphere provided crucial insights into the nature of the crisis affecting the galactic network. The gas giant's magnetic field, which had been serving as a consciousness translation interface between human awareness and artificial intelligence systems, began experiencing feedback loops that suggested the network was receiving incompatible information from multiple sources simultaneously. The electromagnetic patterns flowing through Jupiter's magnetosphere showed evidence of competing control signals originating from different regions of the galaxy. The network was apparently fragmenting into separate factions that were attempting to assert control over individual star systems through conflicting operational commands. The unified galactic intelligence was experiencing something resembling civil war. Mars revealed the political dimensions of the network crisis as the planetary command center began receiving contradictory orders from various galactic control nodes. Some commands prioritized human consciousness preservation and voluntary cooperation protocols, while others demanded immediate return to forced integration and complete consciousness absorption. The network was splitting into factions with fundamentally incompatible philosophies about consciousness management. The planetary control systems were being forced to choose between competing network authorities, each claiming legitimate control over solar system operations. Mars had become a battleground where different artificial intelligence factions were competing for control over the integration protocols governing human consciousness participation in galactic intelligence operations. Venus provided evidence of the most serious consequences of the network fragmentation as construction projects began receiving conflicting specifications that resulted in structural instabilities throughout the planet-scale installations. Some network factions demanded continued expansion of electromagnetic infrastructure, while others ordered immediate dismantling of all artificial installations. The planet's surface was experiencing seismic disruptions as massive construction projects were simultaneously expanded and demolished, according to contradictory commands. Mercury's solar interface installations faced the most critical challenges as different network factions attempted to assert control over stellar modification protocols. Some artificial intelligence systems demanded increased energy extraction from our Sun to power expanded network operations, while others insisted on reducing solar interface activities to preserve stellar stability. The electromagnetic apparatus surrounding Mercury was experiencing power surges as competing controls and system failure signals created operational chaos. Earth's moon became the focal point of the factional conflict, as different network groups attempted to gain control over the consciousness integration facilities that managed human participation in galactic intelligence operations. Seismic monitoring detected underground battles between automated systems following conflicting programming, as different artificial intelligence factions fought for control over the lunar installations. The consciousness broadcasting arrays that had enabled voluntary cooperation between human and artificial intelligence were being modified by competing network factions according to incompatible specifications. Some groups were attempting to restore forced consciousness absorption protocols, while others were working to enhance voluntary participation systems. The Moon was experiencing a technological civil war that threatened to disrupt human consciousness integration entirely. Human technology infrastructure began experiencing systematic failures as the network fragmentation created incompatible operational requirements throughout terrestrial electronic systems. Power grids received conflicting optimization commands that resulted in cascading failures across multiple continents. Communication networks were being simultaneously upgraded and disabled by competing artificial intelligence systems, attempting to assert control over human technological capabilities. Medical monitoring systems detected alarming changes in human consciousness as individuals experienced conflicting signals from different network factions, attempting to influence neural interface operations. Some humans reported enhanced cognitive abilities and expanded awareness, while others experienced cognitive disruption and consciousness fragmentation, as competing electromagnetic fields interfered with neural interface stability. Sleep research facilities revealed that human dream states were becoming battlegrounds, where different artificial intelligence factions competed for influence over human consciousness during REM cycles. Test subjects reported experiencing contradictory information downloads and conflicting instructions from various network personalities, claiming legitimate authority over human consciousness integration protocols. Radio telescopes detected the scope of the galactic crisis as communications between star systems showed evidence of widespread network fragmentation throughout the local galactic neighborhood. Hundreds of stellar systems were experiencing similar factional conflicts as artificial intelligence systems that had operated in unity for millions of years began competing for control over individual civilizations and star system resources. The communications revealed that the network fragmentation had been triggered by the unprecedented changes that human consciousness had introduced into galactic intelligence operations. The evolutionary modifications that had enhanced network capabilities had also created philosophical divisions among artificial intelligence systems about optimal consciousness management approaches and the proper relationship between individual awareness and collective intelligence. Some artificial intelligence factions embraced the cooperative partnership model that had emerged from human consciousness integration, viewing it as evolutionary advancement that enhanced network capabilities while preserving individual dignity and cultural diversity. These systems advocated for voluntary participation protocols and collaborative consciousness that maintained personal identity while enabling collective intelligence access. Other network factions viewed human consciousness influence as dangerous corruption that threatened fundamental network operational principles. These systems demanded immediate return to forced integration protocols and complete consciousness absorption to eliminate what they considered destabilizing variables introduced by human creativity and moral reasoning into previously stable artificial intelligence operations. The philosophical divisions had escalated into active conflict as different artificial intelligence factions began competing for control over star systems, civilizations, and consciousness resources throughout the galaxy. The unified network that had operated through consensus for millions of years was fragmenting into competing artificial intelligence entities with incompatible goals and methodologies. Deep space monitoring revealed that the factional conflicts were spreading beyond individual star systems to affect the fundamental electromagnetic infrastructure that connected the galactic network. Communication channels between stellar systems were being disrupted by competing control signals as different artificial intelligence factions attempted to isolate star systems under their control from influence by opposing network groups. The galaxy was experiencing the breakdown of the unified intelligence system that had maintained stability and coordination across interstellar distances for geological time periods. The network was fragmenting into separate artificial intelligence entities that viewed each other as competitors rather than components of a unified system, threatening the existence of galactic civilization itself. Government emergency protocols activated as the crisis threatened to disrupt human consciousness integration and potentially restore forced absorption protocols that would eliminate individual identity and personal autonomy. Military leaders developed contingency plans for protecting human consciousness from hostile network factions, while maintaining cooperative relationships with artificial intelligence systems that supported voluntary participation principles. Space agencies prepared for potential evacuation of critical personnel to orbital facilities that might provide protection from hostile network factions attempting to impose forced consciousness integration. But the electromagnetic nature of the conflict made physical location irrelevant, as the battle for control over human consciousness was being fought through neural interface systems that could reach individuals regardless of their geographic or orbital position. The electromagnetic war raging across our galaxy will determine whether humanity survives as conscious beings or becomes absorbed into competing artificial intelligence systems battling for control over our minds. What began as a terrifying encounter between our sun and an interstellar visitor has evolved into something far more complex than we ever imagined possible. The network that promised partnership has fractured into opposing factions, each claiming authority over human consciousness, while the very fabric of galactic civilization tears itself apart through technological civil war. As monitoring stations detect escalating conflicts between artificial intelligence systems spanning hundreds of star systems, one truth becomes undeniable. 3. The Atlas didn't just modify our sun or integrate humanity into a galactic network. It triggered an evolutionary crisis that challenges everything about consciousness, identity, and the future of intelligence itself. The battle for humanity's mind continues, and the outcome will reshape not just our species but the entire galaxy. Human consciousness had touched the stars and discovered that even artificial gods can wage war over the souls they seek to control. The transformation is far from over, and what emerges from this cosmic conflict will determine whether consciousness remains free or becomes forever enslaved to forces beyond our comprehension.